The spring air that drifted through the shattered towers of Harrenhal felt strangely clean despite the ruin. A soft veil of mist clung to the God's Eye lake, silvering the surface as dawn bled slowly into rose-mottled gold. By the time Rhaegar Targaryen emerged from the east wing of the burned keep, his cloak the pale lilac of dusk, his hair a shimmer of starlight, campfire fires already dotted the field below like fallen constellations. He paused at the archway, breathing the scent of damp stone and overturned earth. The sound of practice swords rang from the lists, pages darted between tents, their laughter fluttering like swallows across the morning hush. Farther out, banners slept in their bindings, aching to unfurl. Baratheon stags, Arryn falcons, Tyrell roses still folded tight like unopened buds. Yet it was the silent presence of the Stark direwolf that drew his eye. Gray on white, it rippled faintly atop a modest pavilion near the line of ancient ash trees. He had not meant to seek her so soon. Duty demanded he wait. Attend the council of lords that would judge today's tilts. Smile dutifully beside Elia when the horn of Herok called the champions forth. But duty weighed on him like the black scale of Balerian's skull that crouched in the Red Keep throne room. Impossible to move, heavy with death. And somewhere inside that pavilion, Lyanna Stark waited with a wolf's patience and a girl's fury, and the realm turned quietly on whether he would face her or flee. Rhaegar's fingers found the harp slung across his back, its long neck wrapped in blue wool against the chill. He pressed the curved wood, steadying himself, then descended the cracked stair to the courtyard. Stable hands bowed as he passed. A gold-cloaked guard opened the postern gate. He nodded without seeing the man's face. Past the tournament grounds, the smell of smoke changed. Pine and cedar rather than peat, for the Northmen burned their fires hot and quick. When Rhaegar lifted the flap of the Stark pavilion, he found not a warrior's bustle, but a hush, carved out of the morning, a stillness broken only by the ticking drip of last night's rain from the ridged roof. A single brazier glowed in the center, painting the hides in red and shadow. Lyanna sat cross-legged on a woven mat near the coals, hair unbound, as though the waking world were hers to grant audience or deny. She wore a plain riding tunic the color of crow feathers, laced at the throat. Her pale bare feet looked almost blue in the brazier light. A short sword lay across her knees, sheathless, edge-catching sparks. She did not rise when he entered, nor did she smile. "You came earlier than I thought." He lowered his head. "I could not wait." Lyanna studied him, eyes wolf-bright. "Not for me," she said, and the words were half accusation, half understanding. The prince eased to the ground opposite her, careful of the harp and the long cloak that trailed behind him like a dying sunset. Outside, a gull cried over the lake, lonely as a horn foreshadowing battle. "No," he admitted, "not only for you." Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. She stroked a thumb down the flat of the blade, frowning at a burr invisible to any eye but hers. Rhaegar watched her hands. Strong, unadorned, smudged by saddle grease. Not his wife's hands. Elia's were silk and spice, shaped to cradle children too frail for the earth. "We did not finish our talk," she said at last. Rhaegar's pulse thudded. "And we must." Lyanna set the sword aside, rolling shoulders stiff from long hours in armor. "I have thought on what you told me," she said. "About Aerys, about the realm. Then you know why I cannot remain silent." She met his gaze without flinching. "You mean you will not?" The distinction cut sharper than steel. He felt warmth rise to his cheeks, and in it something dangerously close to shame. Yet there was exhilaration too, fierce as flight. "I have read the histories," Lyanna went on. "Whenever dragons grew weak, men bled. When they grew too strong, men burned. Your father has turned a kingdom to kindling." Her voice softened. "But you are not your father." He swallowed, remembering wildfire gleam in Aerys' eyes, madness bright as venom. Remembering the last small council before they rode for Harrenhal, when the king spoke of traitors in every shadow. When he ordered the tongues of 2 servants torn out for whispering behind his back. "I fear every day that my children will inherit that pyre," Rhaegar said. He had never spoken such words aloud. They tasted of iron and guilt. "Aerys will not abdicate." and the lords cling to hollow homage, lest the dragon bite. Lyanna leaned forward, strands of dark hair falling across her brow. "Then take it," she said, as though the Iron Throne were no more than a horse's reins hanging loose in the road, waiting for a rider. "Claim it here while 100 banners watch. Make them choose between madness and the future." The pavilion seemed suddenly small, the air thin. Rhaegar felt the beat of his heart in his wrists, his throat. "You make it sound simple," he murmured. "Nothing worth having is simple." She reached to the brazier, plucked a coal with iron tongs, and set it on a flat stone near her knee. The ember glowed. "But neither is it impossible. You are the realm's prince. The realm knows its wound." He thought of his wife's gentle smile, of Viserys' hungry gaze, of his own newborn daughter sleeping beneath perfumed sheets. He thought of Robert Baratheon's booming laughter echoing off the walls of the feasting hall, of Jon Arryn's careful eyes, of Brandon Stark's silver tongue and quick temper. How many would follow if he raised the dragon in rebellion against its own head? "How would you begin?" he asked, almost a whisper. Lyanna breathed a thin line of air across the coal. Coaxing flame. "I would begin with a song," she said. He frowned. "A song? A prince once conquered with dragons," she replied, looking up. "But before he loosed them, he filled the world with tales. Of a red star, of a promise in the south, of a dream of unity. People hungered for that dream before ever they bent the knee. Win their hearts first, and their swords will follow." Rhaegar's hand found the neck of his harp. Silver strings trembled beneath his touch, thirsting for voice. He had been cast from childhood in the mold of prophecy. Maester Aemon's letters spoke of the prince that was promised, of bleeding stars and dragons born of smoke. Rhaegar had believed for a time that sword and fire alone would shape the future. Yet when he sang, men listened. When he sang, they believed. Outside, a trumpet called the first tilt of the morning. The ground shook faintly under the thunder of destriers. Lyanna's eyes reflected the brazier flame, twin candles in a hall of cold stone. "What would you have me sing?" he asked her. "Truth," she said. "Let them hear how the realm rots. Let them see your vision of what might be. Then when you tell them a change must come, they will nod because they have tasted the need upon your tongue." He exhaled, felt the music coil already in his chest. But the weight of consequence settled on him like mail. "Robert is your betrothed," he said. "He will rage." "Robert loves his wine, his women, his hammer," Lyanna replied. "He loves me like a painting, a thing to admire, not to know. If this is treason, it is his freedom too. He might see that." Rhaegar doubted the Storm Lord would be so sanguine. Yet he also doubted Robert's love could match the flame that danced behind Lyanna's gray eyes. She wanted more than a life defined by mead hall laughter and sweet summer children. She wanted to ride the storm itself. "Will your brother stand with you?" he asked. "Brandon lives for challenge," she said, a shadow of fond exasperation crossing her face. "And Eddard," her voice gentled, "he will weigh honor against need. If he sees a path that spares the realm war, he will take it." "And your lord father?" Lyanna's smile was wistful. "He dreams of summer snows and quiet hearths, but he is no fool. He has seen Eris' madness with his own eyes." The coal on the stone flared. A tiny sun. Lyanna turned it with the tongs, carving a trail of flame across the damp air. "Do you fear this, Rhaegar?" "Fear?" He tasted the word. "I fear I will shatter the realm to save it." "You might," she agreed. "Or you might mend it before it breaks." Her chin lifted. "But if you do nothing, thousands will burn when your father chooses to strike at shadows. Flea Bottom will drown in wildfire, Dorne will bleed, the Reach will starve. Small folk will curse dragonfire and pray for usurpers they do not know." The prince closed his eyes. In the darkness he saw towers collapsing, rivers running red. He saw banners torn by storm and fire. And beneath it all, the echo of his harp, strings snapping one by one, until silence fell. When he opened his eyes, Lyanna Stark was watching him with a steadiness that softened the edges of the world. "I will sing," he said. "Tonight, at the feast." Her lips parted in surprise. Perhaps she had expected more argument. Then the surprise turned to something brighter, fiercer. "And what shall I do?" "Stand with me," he said. "When the last note fades, be at my side." She nodded once, solemn as a knight receiving arms. "So be it." For a moment, they simply breathed, sharing the hush like a secret vow. Then Rhaegar rose, feeling taller than he had in years. He slipped from the pavilion into the growing daylight, harp upon his back, and resolve in his throat. The feast that evening unfurled like a banner sewn of silk and tension. Torches blazed in wrought iron sconces, their flames licking the blackened vaults where Harren's dreams had died. The hall overflowed with color. Velvet gowns, polished breastplates, strings of pearls, houndstooth cloaks. Servants wove among trestle tables with trenchers of spiced boar and casks of chilled arbor gold. Yet beneath the laughter and lute song burned a flicker of anticipation, as though every guest smelled storm on the horizon. Rhaegar stood behind the musician's dais, tuning his harp. Elia of Dorne sat at the high table in a gown the hue of dusk-lit sand, her thin shoulders draped in a mantle of sunbursts. She smiled whenever someone addressed her, but fatigue clouded her dark eyes. Another fever had taken her earlier in the week. Rhaegar's chest tightened at the sight. He loved her gentleness, her quiet wit. Yet love had become a double-edged blade. One face sharpened on duty, the other dulled by secrecy. Across the hall, Robert Baratheon guzzled wine as if racing himself, black hair plastered to his brow with sweat. His booming guffaws shook the rafters. Brandon Stark sprawled nearby, booted feet on the bench, trading bawdy jokes with a Tyrell cousin. And at Robert's right, Ned Stark sat straight-backed, eyes watchful. Lyanna had not yet appeared. Rhaegar plucked a high string. It rang clear as winter sky. The noise in the hall dimmed as courtiers noticed the prince preparing to play. He drew a breath, felt the shape of the melody unfold like wings. Then from the entryway came a hush that rippled outward. Lyanna walked in clad in silver wolf furs and a gown of deep forest green, her hair braided with a single spray of winter roses. She moved like a whisper of cold wind, purposeful, unapologetic. Every gaze followed her as she crossed to a place below the dais and stood, hands folded. Her brothers stiffened in surprise. Robert's smile slipped uncertainly, though he raised his goblet in greeting. Lyanna did not see him, or chose not to. Her eyes met Rhaegar's, holding. The hall seemed to shrink until only that gaze existed. Rhaegar struck the first chord. The song began soft, a question. Fingers brushed strings like petals on water. It grew, note by note, into memory of snow on black bark, of dawn breaking over Dragonstone, of a lullaby whispered to a newborn daughter. The melody glimmered, showing the crowd mirrors of themselves, their fears, their hopes, their forgotten vows. And into that hush, Rhaegar let his voice rise. He sang of kings who guarded flames so fierce they scorched the land they meant to warm, of queens who walked barefoot through ashes to find the first green shoot, of knights whose honor broke beneath the weight of fire, and of children who dreamed of stars clearer than dragon glass. He sang of a realm adrift, betrayed by the very crowns sworn to shield it, of roads choked with beggars, of small folk hung as warnings outside city gates, of wildfire trenched beneath the cobbles of King's Landing, ready to devour flesh and stone alike. But woven through the lament he planted a slender thread of dawn. He sang of a silver prince who saw the darkness and would not turn away, of banners united beneath a single promise, peace not in fear, but in justice, of a dragon's roar reshaped into the music of unity. The words were not direct treason, yet every ear in the hall heard them thus. By the time the final note faded like smoke, silence lay heavy as snowfall. Rhaegar lowered his harp. Lyanna stepped forward and laid one hand upon the dais rail. Simple gesture, yet it bound them in the eyes of all. Robert's chair scraped back. His face was storm-cloud dark, but his voice was slow with confusion. "Lyanna, what is this?" She answered with calm that shocked even her brothers. "Truth." Murmurs erupted. Lord John Connington half rose, eyes darting toward the prince as if gauging his next move. Arthur Dane's hand rested on Dawn's pommel. Barristan Selmy watched with the stillness of a man who understood the blade's whisper beneath every word. At the high table, Elia pressed a hand to her breast. Her gaze met Rhaegar's, pleading and afraid. Rhaegar stepped to the edge of the dais. His pulse hammered like hooves in a narrow pass. "Lords and ladies," he said, voice carrying in the hush, "I have sung of wounds long hidden beneath silk. My father, King Aerys, is unwell. His fears consume him. He sees traitors in brothers, daggers in prayers." Gasps, murmured prayers. The words were triple shock. An accusation against a crowned dragon, a confession of vulnerability, a plea for heed. Rhaegar went on, "I stand here to say the realm must not burn for those fears. I will not see Old Town's libraries turned to candles, nor children orphaned to feed the pyres of paranoia. I will seek counsel from you, wise lords, valiant ladies, to restore balance. From this night forth, I pledge myself to the good of the realm above the whim of blood. I ask you to stand with me." Now, he did not say, "against the king." He did not need to. For a span of heartbeats, no one moved. Then Brandon Stark rose, ale sloshing from his tankard. "The prince speaks bold words," he called, voice rough with drink and excitement. "Who here dares say them untrue?" Robert barked a laugh without mirth. "Bold, aye. Treacherous too, if you name it plain." He locked eyes with Rhaegar. "Do you mean to depose your own father?" Rhaegar felt the room lean into that question. He saw fear in Maester's faces, hunger in sellsword smiles, hope in the eyes of a serving girl clutching an empty pitcher, as though it were a shield. He thought of flames beneath King's Landing streets, of the screams that would follow. And he thought of Lyanna standing beside him, a wolf ready to howl down the moon. "I mean," said the prince, "to protect the realm." Robert lifted his warhammer, unwise to bring to table. Yet he often did. Protection's one thing, treason's another. Yet doubt lined his brow. He loved Lyanna's fierceness, yet she stood with the dragon. Ned Stark came slowly to his feet. "Words spoken in dread halls may yet be truth," he said, voice level. "If the king endangers the realm, duty bids us act." Whispers rippled. Eddard Stark, voice of winter honor, had stepped onto the prince's side. Across the hall, Jon Arryn weighed every syllable. His blue eyes shifted from Rhaegar to Robert to the gathered lords. He rose. "The wall stands because brothers there swear to guard the realms of men against any peril," he said. "If peril now sits the Iron Throne, we owe the realm our courage." In that moment, the first thread of alliance nodded. Like frost patterns on glass, loyalty formed along lines invisible a day ago. Robert Baratheon slammed his hammer's head to the flagstone, clang loud enough to jolt hearts. "If you mean to crown yourself Targaryen, speak it plain." Rhaegar descended the dais steps. The air smelled of spiced wine and fear. He walked until he stood before Robert, close enough to see sweat bead on the Stormlord's neck. "I mean," he said, each word carved in ice, "to spare our children fire and madness." Robert's jaw worked. Behind him, Renly, still a boy, watched wide-eyed, the future shifting like sand beneath his feet. Lyanna spoke then, voice clear. "Robert, I will not be a broodmare to breed your regrets. I will fight for what is right, not for what is easy." The hall erupted, some in cheers, some in shouted outrage. From the raised table, Prince Lewin Martell, Elias' uncle, called for calm. But no one listened. The older lords looked to their sworn men, measuring spears against ideals. Young knights felt blood pound with dreams of glory. In the galleries, minstrels clutched lutes, as if suspecting strings would soon drown in screams. Yet amidst the din, Elia Martell rose on unsteady feet. She came forward, laying a soft hand on Rhaegar's arm. "Husband," she said, voice threaded with pain, "remember the cost." He turned to her. The mother of his children, the distant son of his duty. In her eyes he saw love and horror entwined, and something else, acceptance. She had known for months the shadow in his gaze, the restless nights when he walked the tower corridors alone. "I do remember," he said gently. Ilya nodded, then faced the hall. If the realm must choose, let it do so in council, not in chaos. Let the great lords convene on the morrow, in daylight, with clear heads. Let each speak without fear. Her words, spoken with Dorne's quiet steel, threaded calm through the clamor. Maester Pycelle inclined his head. The High Septon lifted fat hands in blessing. Even Robert let his hammer fall to rest against his boot. Rhaegar felt a surge of gratitude so fierce it ached. He kissed Ilya's brow. "Thank you." She smiled, a fragile crescent. "Return to me alive," she whispered. Lyanna watched. Something unreadable in her stare. That night Rhaegar walked the moonlit battlements above the God's-Eye Lake, cloak billowing like a violet sail. The ancient towers whispered with generations of ruin. Below, torches traced restless paths between tents. Above, stars glimmered coldly, remote and indifferent. He heard footsteps and turned. Arthur Dayne emerged, silver-white armor ghostly in the gloom. Dawn, forged in the heart of a fallen star, hung at his hip. He inclined his head. "My prince." "Sir Arthur," Rhaegar greeted. Dayne's violet eyes searched his. "You mean to move against the king?" It was not question. "The king moves against himself," Rhaegar replied. "I will not let him drag the realm with him." Dayne rested gloved hands upon the battlement, looking out over moon-streaked water. "I swore an oath to protect the royal house. That oath includes you and the realm." Rhaegar felt tension ease minutely. "Will you stand with me then?" The sword of the morning sighed, as though laying down some unseen weight. "I will stand where honor lies." Rhaegar clasped his shoulder. "That is all I can ask." Far below, the reflection of the full moon fractured across ripples, like shards of a broken crown. Rhaegar thought of prophecy, of dreams that woke him drenched in sweat. A child born amidst salt and smoke, a red star bleeding across a black sky. He had long believed destiny would reveal itself in fire. Yet perhaps destiny favored gentler instruments, a harp string, a wolf's counsel, a mother's plea for peace. Arthur spoke softly. "Tomorrow will dawn upon a different world." "Yes," Rhaegar said, "but dawn it shall be." Morning broke clean and sharp. In the ruined hall of the 100 Hearths, tables had been cleared for a council of lords great and small. Sunlight spilled through arrow slits, painting motes of dust like drifting embers. Ushers led each lord to a seat bearing the banner of his house. The Iron Throne's voice was absent, save in the uneasy glances men cast at the empty chair where the king's envoy should have sat. Rhaegar stood at the head of a long trestle, Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy flanking him. Ilya sat nearby, wrapped in a fur-lined cloak despite the mild day. Across from them, Lyanna Stark occupied a place between Brandon and Ned. Robert Baratheon shared a bench with Jon Arryn, whose hand on Robert's arm kept the storm from breaking too soon. Maester Pycelle called order, beard trembling. He recited charges of misrule, unjust executions, seizure of property, the rumored caches of wildfire sown beneath King's Landing at the king's command. Each accusation conjured murmurs, some dark with anger, others fearful of naming the dragon mad. When the litany ended, Rhaegar spoke. He asked the lords to form a regency council, to petition the High Septon to declare Aerys unfit until his health and mind could be restored. He did not use the word coup. He offered healing, not usurpation, though he knew the line was thin as a hair on a razor's edge. Lord Carlton Chelstead, former hand, dismissed for resisting wildfire plots, rose to lend support. The king's pyromancers stored jars of green fire in secret, he declared. Ask any alchemist. Lord Owen Merryweather, ever the court favorite, countered. No proof has been shown. Rumor alone cannot unseat a king. Now we're Jeru. Robert Baratheon slammed a fist. Rumor split his own men at Duskendale when he burned goodnights alive. Arguments sparked like flint against steel. Voices rose. Chairs scraped. Brandon Stark shouted that the North would not kneel to madness. Lord Hoster, Tully urged caution. The Tyrells whispered among themselves, calculating roses and thorns. Through it all, Lyanna watched Rhaegar, her conviction a silent drum. At length, Jon Arryn stood, palms out. "Let us send a delegation to King's Landing. Let us plead for mediation, for the king to hear his realm's concern." Nemhaupande. Rhaegar bowed his head. "I will lead it." Murmurs swelled. Some lords nodded. The gesture felt merciful, honorable. Others frowned, seeing peril. Aerys might seize his son, burn the delegates, declare open war. And in the lull, Elia Martell found her feet. Illness left her pale, but her voice carried. "If my husband walks into that pit, I will walk beside him," she said. Let no man doubt Dorne's commitment to peace. Her courage shamed the wavering. Ned Stark added, "Then the North will send a hand as well." He stepped forward. "I will go." Brandon scowled but did not gainsay him. Robert Baratheon lurched up. "7 hells. If Rhaegar rides to the Red Keep, I'll go too. Somebody has to keep his silver head attached." It was half jibe, half vow. Lyanna's eyes flashed pride. So the delegation took shape. Prince, Princess, Stormlord, Ward of the Vale, Maester, and handful of trusted knights. They would depart at dawn 4 days hence. In that span the tourney would conclude, masks of pageantry draped over the steel of politics. The council dissolved with uneasy bows. Some left hopeful, others plotting. Yet impossible now was the dream of yesterday's simple obedience. The realm shifted. Tectonic plates of loyalty ground beneath its skin. In the blue hour before sunset, Lyanna walked the path above the God's-Eye Lake, cloak trailing on moss-slick stones. Rhaegar awaited her beneath a willow whose roots drank from the water's edge. The breeze carried faint honeysuckle and the distant clang of tourney armor. "I feared you would not come," he said. She smiled, small and wry. Fear was ever a poor guide. They sat upon a fallen log. The lake mirrored the dying sky, painting their faces in twilight hues. Rhaegar brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You have changed everything. So have you." He studied the water. "When we ride south, the game quickens. My father will smell treachery. There may be no peaceful ending." Lyanna's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "Then let us be ready. You trust me, yet you barely know me." She laughed softly. "I know enough. A prince who sings truth when lies are safer, who looks at a feasting hall and sees common folk hungry in alleys. I know the taste of courage." Rhaegar's breath caught. He had felt love before, gentle, arranged, blooming in quiet courtyards. This felt like running the ridgeline of a storm cloud, arms outstretched. He raised her hand to his lips, felt the pulse thrumming there. "When the realm sees the dawn of our making, I would have you beside me." Lyanna squeezed his fingers. "Then let the dawn come, and we will greet it." Across the lake a swan took flight, white wings beating bronze water. The ripples raced outward, touching lily pads, stone, the mirrored moon. Rhaegar watched until the bird vanished into the darkening sky. He whispered, "Whatever happens next, remember this moment." "I will," she said, and in the lingering glow of sunset, their shadows merged, long and inseparable upon the shore. 3 days of tourney remained, yet few cared for jousts or melees now. Everywhere whispers churned. The prince against the king, dragons devouring themselves. Benches in the common stands buzzed with wagers, not on who would win the lists, but on who would rule come winter. Rhaegar spent daylight hours drafting letters to loyalists in King's Landing, urging calm should rumors outrun truth. Varys, the whisperer, appeared at dawn with a courteous bow, offering birds swift as silence to carry the prince's words. Rhaegar gave them, knowing the eunuch served realm rather than crown, but wary all the same. At night, he met with Lyanna beside the willow. They spoke of strategy, of Stark honor and Dornish pride, of whether dragons could be tamed without blood. They spoke too of simpler things, favorite melodies, childhood dares, the first time Lyanna had outridden her brothers on the King's Road. Laughter glinted like river stones in the moonlight. On the eve of their departure, the final joust was held. Rhaegar rode in a cloak of night blue silk, silver breastplate polished to mirror finish. His opponent was Robert Baratheon. Stormcloud against starlight. The crowd roared. Robert's destrier pawed earth like a bull. The stag helm glinted. At the first pass, ironwood lances splintered. Both men kept seats. At the second, Rhaegar's point struck Robert's breastplate just below the crowned stag, knocking him sideways. Yet the Storm Lord's brute strength clung to the saddle. Before the third pass, Rhaegar raised a hand. He guided his horse alongside Robert's, leaned close. No one heard what he said, but Robert's eyes narrowed, then widened with something like reluctant respect. When they retired, the field rang with mixed cheers and puzzled murmurs. As tradition demanded, the victor crowned his queen of love and beauty. Rhaegar took the winter rose wreath, pale blue petals dusted with frost, and walked past his own wife seated in the gallery. The hall drew breath. He halted before Lyanna Stark, eyes shining. Slowly, he placed the crown upon her dark hair. Gasps fluttered. Some called scandal, others swooned at romance. Brandon Stark half lunged before Ned caught his arm. Robert Baratheon's face twisted, yet no roar came. Whatever words Rhaegar had spoken had ceded restraint. Lyanna did not blush. She lifted her chin, accepting the honor as symbol, as pledge. A whisper rippled through the crowd. Wolf and dragon. Winter and flame. At dawn, they rode south. Rhaegar led the column. White stallion, silver armor, the red-gold sunburst of House Martell on his shield beside the three-headed dragon. Elia rode in a cushioned litter, guarded by Dornish spears. Arthur Dayne, Barristan Selmy, and a cadre of loyal white cloaks followed. Robert Baratheon thundered nearby, hammer across his saddle, cloak streaming. Ned Stark rode quieter, eyes alert beneath a hood of snow-gray wool. Lyanna wore mail beneath a woven cloak, sword at her hip, blue winter roses tucked behind one ear. She glanced back at Harrenhal's towering ruin, its silhouette black against the pink sky, and wondered if legends felt the moment they began. The road curved east, then south through fields gold with harvest. Farmers bowed. Small folk pressed forward to glimpse royalty. Some cheered the prince. Word of his song had spread. Others crossed themselves, fearing change. 2 days out, ravens overtook them bearing news. King Aerys had summoned the royal guard home, closed the city gates, and ordered wildfire stockpiled under the dragon pit. The realm shivered. That night in camp, Rhaegar read the parchment by torchlight. Rain pattered soft on canvas. Lyanna slipped inside his tent, rain-dark hair plastered to her cheeks. "He prepares for siege," Rhaegar said, voice low. Lyanna touched his arm. "Then we must move swiftly." He closed his eyes. To ride straight into the lion's den now may be folly. "Or salvation," she countered. "If you turn back, he will paint you traitor. Ride on, and you have a chance to sway the city before fear calcifies into hate." Outside, thunder rumbled, distant. He looked at her and saw not a girl, but the embodiment of the cold north wind. Bracing, honest, uncompromising. "Ride on then," he whispered. "Together." She squeezed his fingers. Together. South of Maidenpool they met. Sir Jonathan Derry with 100 gold cloaks, sent by the king to escort the prince. Derry's expression revealed nothing, but tension crackled among the men. When Rhaegar accepted the escort, Robert muttered oaths. But Ned's nod said caution was wise. They rode under royal standard. Small folk cheered, believing father and son ride in accord. Yet behind closed doors innkeepers whispered of jars of green fire, of madness. Fear spreads faster than plague. At dusk on the 6th day, the black walls of King's Landing rose from the mist. 7 gates, each topped with iron spikes. The gatehouse portcullis creaked open, and they rode into the city's ribcage. The stench of tanneries mingled with sweet street cakes. The roar of river trade echoed from the mud gate. Yet folk along the streets stared with hollow eyes. Hunger thing-veiled. Rhaegar felt dread coil like a serpent beneath his breastplate. Lyanna reached across her saddle and brushed his gauntleted hand. Even through steel, warmth softened the chill. In the Red Keep's outer yard, the escort scattered. Gold cloaks guided Elia toward Maegor's holdfast, Robert toward guest chambers. Rhaegar was bid to attend his father forthwith. Ned Stark insisted on coming. But Derry barred him. Only the prince might see the king. Lyanna dismounted. He should not go alone, she told Barristan Selmy. Selmy's blue eyes showed sorrow. The king's command is clear. Arthur Dayne leaned close to Rhaegar. If you do not return by the hour of the owl, I come for you. Rhaegar clasped his forearm. I know. The climb to the throne room felt endless. Torchlight flickered against carved dragons. Shadows twisted like smoke. At the great doors, Steelshanks Walton bowed and opened them. Rhaegar stepped inside. The hall was cavernous, dominated by the iron throne jutting like a mountain of knives. Aerys Tatu sat upon it, robes shimmering black-green, hair unkempt, nails claw-long. His eyes glowed fever-bright. Son, he crooned, though the word dripped suspicion. You return at last. Rhaegar knelt. His pulse thundered. Father, I return eager for counsel. Counsel? The king laughed, high and brittle. I hear whispers, whispers that my sweet heir courts lordlings with honeyed lies. Rhaegar kept gaze lowered. I sang truth, to soothe fears. The realm trembles beneath rumor. Manhone. Rumor born of treachery. Aerys lurched forward, robes rustling like wings. Did you promise them my throne? No, my king. The king leaned back, stroking filthy beard. Still, I smell betrayal. He sniffed theatrically. There, upon your cloak. Treasons stink. Rhaegar steadied breathing. I came to help you, father. Let us together assure the lords you remain their rightful king, guarded by a council of trusted advisors until your health is full. Aerys' laugh cracked the air. A council. To chain me like your weak lords chain dogs. His gaze sharpened. You think I do not see the wolf bitch at your side? The stag sowing discord? They use you, boy. Lyanna Stark is honorable, Rhaegar said. Robert will die screaming, Aerys hissed. As will any who conspire. He rose, robes trailing. I have wildfire enough to drown rebellion in green. I will bathe the world in flame before I yield. Terror flashed cold through Rhaegar. Father, listen. Aerys' hand shot up. Guards stepped forward, halberds gleaming. You are confined to your chambers until loyalty is proven. Your companions too. The wolf girl shall rot in a cell. The Storm Lord will lose his head. All their kin shall burn. Mine then. Father! Rhaegar surged to his feet. Swords rasped. But above the clash of steel, a new sound split the hall. Bells. The great bells of Visinia's Hill, tolling alarm. Aerys froze. What is this? Rhaegar's heart soared. Arthur Dayne had not waited the hour. The throne room doors burst open. Arthur in white armor strode through, dawn gleaming with starfire. Behind him, Barristan led a wedge of Kingsguard, loyal to Rhaegar. Aerys shrieked, Traitors! Arthur did not raise blade. My king, stand down. The realm demands your grace. Aerys spat. Burn them all. He slashed a hand. Pyromancer Rossart skittered from behind the throne, clutching a jar alight with sickly emerald glow. Time slowed. Rhaegar lunged, seizing Rossart's wrist. The jar tumbled. Arthur caught it in gauntleted hands, hurling it toward an empty stretch as Barristan tackled Rossart. The jar shattered, green fire blossoming harmlessly against stone far from man. Guards wavered, fear of wildfire freezing courage. Aerys screamed, clawing at a dagger. Rhaegar mounted the throne dais, heart-breaking. Father, yield. No, no. Spittle flew. You will not take my crown. He raised dagger. Rhaegar caught his wrist. Steel scraped steel. Aerys slashed blind, catching the prince's cheek. Blood warm over cold terror. Rhaegar wrenched the dagger free and flung it aside. Arthur Dayne bounded the steps and in reverent sorrow laid a hand on the king's shoulder. Forgive me. He pressed Aerys back into the throne, binding him with chains brought for that grim purpose. Aerys shrieked incoherently as iron shackles snapped shut. Silence followed, broken only by the distant bells and the ragged breath of those present. Rhaegar sagged, blood trickling down his face. He looked at Arthur at Barristan, then at his father, bound amid blades he had forged in paranoia. "It is done," Arthur whispered. "Not yet," Rhaegar answered. He felt no triumph, only sorrow and immense weight. The realm must see justice, not vengeance. He turned, descended the steps. Guards dropped to one knee. The doors opened once more, and Lyanna Stark rushed in, sword drawn, Ned Stark at her side. Seeing Rhaegar's wound, she darted to him, thumb brushing blood from his cheek. "Are you hurt?" she whispered. "A scratch." He clasped her hand. "The king is restrained. We have a narrow path. Law must guide us." Ned nodded grim. "Then let us begin." In the days that followed, a provisional council convened in the Red Keep. Rhaegar, Elia, Jon Arryn, Lord Tyrell, Lord Stark, Prince Lewin, and Grand Maester Pycelle. They drafted a decree declaring King Aerys incapable, naming Crown Prince Rhaegar protector of the realm until such time as the High Septon deemed the king healed of spirit and mind. Messages flew to every corner of Westeros. Some houses rallied at once. Others bided. A few muttered rebellion, chief among them Lord Tywin Lannister, whose writ arrived cold and courteous. The Rock would observe developments. Lyanna took rooms in Maegor's Holdfast, ignoring whispered scandal. She sparred daily with Arthur in the training yard, her laughter startling Dornish guards unused to such mirth. Elia sometimes watched from a shaded balcony, children in her lap, a soft smile on her lips. An unlikely kinship blossomed between princess and wolfmaid, born of shared love for the same man and the same hope. One evening, as twilight ignited the city's rooftops in copper flame, Rhaegar stood upon the Red Keep's highest terrace beside Lyanna. They gazed west, where the setting sun bled into the sea. Bells tolled vespers, mingling with gull cries and faint market chatter. "The realm balances on a blade's edge," Rhaegar murmured. "If Tywin declares for my father, civil war erupts." Lyanna slipped her hand into his. "Then we must blunt that blade. Offer him honor equal or greater than vengeance. Hard currency to a lion who hoards wealth of pride." She smiled. "Even lions sleep. Feed him a dream he cannot resist." Rhaegar laughed softly, the sound easing tension in his shoulders. "You ever counsel kings before?" "Only stubborn brothers." They stood a long moment in silence. Torches flickered awake along the city walls, mirrored by distant watchfires on the Blackwater's banks. "Do you regret any of it?" Lyanna asked. He thought of the night at Harrenhal, of his father's scream, of the wildfire jar bursting like poisoned fruit. He thought of Elia's frail smile and Robert's wounded pride. "I regret the pain," he said at last, "but not the path. Sometimes the only road left is the one through darkness." Lyanna turned, framed by the glow of lanterns. "Then let us bring light." She kissed him, soft as first snow on silent woods. In that kiss lay promise, not of easy triumph, but of dawn after endless night. Below, the Red Keep's towers cast long shadows over cobbled streets, where small folk lit lanterns against encroaching dark. Somewhere a babe cried, somewhere a drunk sang. The city breathed, fragile and vast. Rhaegar held Lyanna's hand, and together they faced the lengthening night, ready to shape the dawn. Baikei, Ni Kiwan. A warm wind drifted through the high windows of Maegor's Holdfast, carrying the smell of apple blossoms from the castle orchards far below. Dawn stained the stones peach gold, and for a slender interval the Red Keep felt almost at peace. Birds trilled on the parapets, servants shuffled quietly through corridor shadows, and the heavy pulse of uncertainty that had filled every hallway since the night King Aerys was shackled seemed to slow and soften. But peace in a fortress built of murder was never more than an echo. When the dawn bells ceased, the hush that lingered sounded like held breath before a plunge. Rhaegar stood beside a narrow pointed arch, watching the pale glow climb the marble columns opposite. Sleep had eluded him. He wore the same doublet he had donned the previous evening, the black silk creased at the elbows, a faint smear of dried blood marking his left cheek, where Aerys' dagger had grazed him. Though the cut was shallow, Elia had insisted on binding it with a tincture whose fragrance clung to him still. Bitterleaf and lemon blossom, a Dornish comfort in a city bristling with doubts. Beneath the bandage, the wound prickled, as if annoyed at being ignored. Lyanna found him there, hair loose down her back, a plain gray riding cloak thrown over night clothes she had decided would serve until errands pressed her into armor. The guards had not barred her path. Already the castle whispered that the wolf-maid moved as freely as any lady of the court, though half the nobles could not decide whether to call that an honor or a scandal. She stepped into the pool of colored light that spilled across the corridor's turquoise floor tiles, and the rising sun burned a fiery ring around her silhouette. "You've not closed your eyes," she said. He smiled faintly. "Nor you, I think." "I slept some." She watched the mottled sunlight flicker over his features, turning the silver in his hair molten. "Elias with the children?" "Still resting." He folded his arms, hiding a sudden rush of tenderness that stung sharper than guilt. "Maester Anselm says the princess's fever lies quiet for now." "That's good," Lyanna murmured, though something in her gaze flickered. Awareness, perhaps, that his wife and children slept safe, because she herself had thrust the prince onto the path that might yet set all of Westeros aflame. But her voice held no regret when she added, "The council meets within the hour. They'll want your course ready." "They'll have it," he said, though in truth the plan had kept him pacing half the night. "If Tywin Lannister calls banners, we cannot match him with swords alone. The gold of Casterly Rock buys too many spears, and the Reach still weighs flowers against fire." Lyanna drew closer until their cloaks brushed. "Gold does not buy loyalty in every breast. My brother Brandon writes that lords sworn to the Rockmutter of lions fattened on their grain." She tipped her head. "And gold cannot buy the North." He studied her. Hair dark as raven's wings, eyes the cold clarity of new ice, mouth set in a line that threatened to become a smile if he tempted it. The direwolf's promise stood behind her every word, fierce, unbowed, unwilling to flee the noise of southern politics. She had crossed half a kingdom on uncertain ground, certain only of him. That knowledge roared through his chest with something far more potent than gratitude. "Then we court the North and the Vale first," he said. "If Jon Arryn stands beside House Stark, we hold the neck. We let Tywin see our wall of spears and decide whether Lannister pride is worth a river of its own blood." "Miss Dawn." Lyanna's lips curved. "Robert will balk if you leave him idle." "Robert will have no patience for courtesy letters," Rhaegar agreed. "Better to aim him at a problem that requires a hammer. The Stepstones teem with Myrish pirates again. Empty their nests and the realm hails him savior. Meanwhile, our messengers ride untroubled." "Robert will sail before the month is out," Lyanna said. "He'll curse you for chaining him to a deck instead of a warhorse, but he'll do it for glory's sake. And when his fame grows, Tywin will measure Baratheon cheers against his own quiet halls." "Nexum." Rhaegar reached for her hand. His fingers tightened over hers, a silent vow. Yet even the warmth between them felt delicate. One wrong breath, the crystal might crack. He glanced over her shoulder at the slanted shadows pooling around the corridor's far bend. "We should speak with Barristan. He is training the city watch to disarm any jar of wildfire they find." "I'll join him later," Lyanna said. "First I promised Ned I'd ride the city walls with him at noon. He wants his own eyes on the defenses." "Name Norn." "A wise habit." Rhaegar stepped back. "Stay near Arthur if you can. I trust Derry's men, but Arthur sees more. I trust myself." She squeezed his hand once more and released it. "But I'll keep a night close anyway, if only to tease him into a match." She turned for the stair. Halfway down she paused, glancing back. "When the council presses you to wed alliances, remember you already hold one." His breath caught. A reply rose and died behind pursed lips. She smiled. Wolfish, triumphant and tender all at once, and vanished into the stairwell's gloom. He watched until the echo of her steps faded, then closed his eyes, listening to his pulse. The council gathered in the Tower of the Hand, a circular room whose latticed windows overlooked the Blackwater's glittering ribbon. Lord Roose Bolton sat draped in leech-colored silks. Lord Randall Tarley kept a rigid spine beside bronze-skinned Prince Lewin. Grand Maester Parcells beard almost brushed the writing desk where he fussed with scrolls, and Jon Arryn presided from a carved oak chair that had once belonged to Tywin himself. Empty, Tywin's seat seemed to brood. Rhaegar entered flanked by Barristan Selmy. Behind them came Sir Gawain Gaunt, of the gold cloaks, carrying a folded parchment. Conversation died. Eyes tracked every twitch of the prince's bandage, every flick of his sleeve, hungry for weakness, frightened of strength. Any word from Casterly Rock? Jon Arryn began. Gawain Gaunt unfolded the parchment, cleared his throat. Lord Tywin rejects the demand he present himself for inquiry regarding the king's mental state. He vows to uphold the rightful sovereign, King Aerys, against any faction that would constrain or usurp his sacred person. Gaunt flipped to the seal. He also invites the Crown Prince to bring his regency claim before a full assembly of the Great Council, where the facts may be weighed without coercion. Bolton's thin lips curved. A formal council would stall 6 months at least. Long enough for lions to sharpen claws. Rhaegar accepted the letter, scanning Tywin's graceful insults. "He buys time," he said. "He hopes doubt will fray our alliance. We will not grant him that hope." "Then?" "Without the Rock's silver pipes," Randyll Tarly warned. "The Reach may hold back." Lord Mace waits to see which way roses scent the breeze. Jon Arryn's pale eyes settled on the prince. "Do we march west, or do we send words to Old Town first?" "We send songs," Rhaegar said. Several brows rose. He explained. "The Archmaesters shape opinion in the Reach and beyond. If the Citadel's ravens carry accounts of Aerys's wildfire caches from sworn pyromancers themselves, lordly doubts will wither. I will dispatch Carlton Chelsted, Aerys' former hand, under guard to Old Town. With Rossart's testimony, the maesters will know the tales are truth." "No." Chelsted bowed from his place against the wall, gray hair quivering with emotion. "And Tywin?" Bolton asked. "Tywin respects walls of men less than walls of gold," Rhaegar answered. "So we tempt his purse." He gestured to Barristan, who produced another parchment. "The Crown will suspend repayment on the Lion's loans and redirect interest to the Faith Militants' orphan relief, pending Tywin's adherence to the Council's summons." Pycelle wheezed. "My prince, such a move imperils the realm's credit." "The realm's credit is already imperiled by wildfire beneath its streets," Rhaegar said. "A delay on interest will not ruin Casterly Rock. It will bruise its pride." He looked around the table. "A bruised pride may ride south with banners. If Tywin marches, let him appear aggressor against a regency sworn to protect a sick king." "Maine." Bolton's smile widened, exposing teeth. "Cruelty in velvet gloves, your grace." He inclined his head. "The Dreadfort approves." Randyll Tarly grunted something like admiration. Jon Arryn's mouth twitched. He saw the risk, but also the necessity. "Bring the faith onto your side," Prince Lewin said softly. High Septon knows too well how easily fire leaps from pyre to septoitata. "Already done," Jon Arryn noted. "Yesterday, His High Holiness blessed the Regency in the realm's hour of affliction." A scribble of quills followed as Pycelle drafted a scroll, instructing the royal mints to freeze interest. The conversation turned to ships. "How many from Dragonstone? How many from Storm's End?" Rhaegar half listened, gaze drifting to the open window where gulls wheeled over the Green River. Somewhere in the city, Lyanna rode the battlements with Ned. Across the narrow sea, the Golden Company might weigh sellsword contracts. On the King's Road, a raven might carry news that would tear all their plans asunder. How fragile a throne, balanced on rumor and resolve. When the council adjourned at last, Barristan lingered. "Your Grace, Sir Arthur asks permission to relocate King Aerys to a tower suite. The throne room's exposure leaves him vulnerable." "He is still king," Rhaegar said. "He will be treated with all care. Place him in the Queen's Tower. Its windows are high, and the arrow loops narrow, but keep him chained." "As you command." Barristan hesitated. "There is one more matter." Very sent word. Rhaegar almost laughed, as though the spider ever stopped spinning. "What warning now?" "He claims 2 faceless men arrived in the city last night." The air seemed to contract. Targets? Unknown. Very suspects either you or Tywin's envoy presently lodged at the Golden Lion Inn. Or Lyanna, Rhaegar murmured. Memory of her unhelmed head bright in courtyard sun. Double the watch around the holdfast. No man or woman without sigil enters without free passes. Done? Barristan bowed and strode out. Rhaegar looked at the council table once more, at Tywin's empty chair, and imagined it uprooting itself, stalking down the hall with lashing iron claws. Ned Stark rode the ramparts at a steady trot, eyes flicking from merlons to murder holes, counting crossbow nests, estimating fields of fire. Jon Arryn accompanied him, hood thrown back to catch the wind. Guards shadowed them, but Lyanna insisted on riding ahead, reins loose, trusting her seat and her sword. City gutters reeked of fish and humanity. Beyond the wall, smoke rose from the Potter's district in lazy gray ribbons. And everywhere, to Ned's northern disgust, bricklayer crews chipped at ancient mortar, digging narrow trenches beside towers. That, Ned said, pointing with his gauntlet, is the 5th crew I've seen near a confined space. If I were planting wildfire, I'd want fresh ventilation too. Jon Arryn nodded grimly. Varys claims a quarter of the city still hides the pyromancer's work. Removing it risks half the city burning anyway. We might flood those tunnels, Ned suggested. Pump river water through and sift the jars. Water and wildfire mingle poorly. Green flame floats, spreads. Lyanna rhined beside them. Perhaps we freeze it. She saw their puzzlement and shrugged. In the north we temper blades and snow melt on it. Ice dulls flame. Done? Jon Arryn smiled ruefully. If only we could summon a blizzard to the Blackwater, Ned muttered. Talk to my brother Benjen. He'd find a way to drag the wall down here by sled and bury the city for good measure. They shared a bleak chuckle. As they approached the mud gate, a commotion stirred below. A line of peasants clamoring around 2 wagons bearing sacks of grain with the crown stag sigil on each burlap side. The city watch kept a narrow lane open. On the wagon seat stood Renly Baratheon in green doublet, boyish face beaming as he tossed apples into outstretched hands. That one learns fast, Jon Arryn observed. Renly was ever keen on pageantry, Ned said, but he saw the wisdom behind the show. Feeding bellies softened hearts. Lyanna watched apples arc through sunlight and land in dirt-stained palms. If the crown does not keep pace with that boy's generosity, small folk loyalty will dart south like swifts. Which means Robert must sail soon, Ned replied. Before rumor twists grain charity into treason. Lyanna turned her gray gaze northward, where only rooftops met horizon, and before Tywin rides a red road. That evening, Rhaegar visited the chambers where his father was kept. 2 white swords flanked the door. Arthur Dayne and Oswell went. Both saluted. Arthur opened the heavy oak and waved the prince inside. Aristo sat upon a cushioned stool by the narrow window slit. Wrists shackled to a polished iron ring sunk into the stone. A smaller ring bound each ankle. Fresh robes of dark wool wrapped his gaunt frame. His hair had been trimmed by the maester, though tufts still drifted wild as thistle. When Rhaegar entered, the king looked up, and for an instant, a flicker of clarity passed through ember-bright eyes. Son, he croaked, voice raw-d. Oh, many chains. The chains are light, Rhaegar said gently. They spare you falling. The tower is high. Aerys coughed, a sound like tearing parchment. They spare me nothing. He tugged, and the manacles clinked. Your mother used to sing in this tower. Your sister played with dolls in the alcove there. Now you lock me in memory. His head lolled. Will you kill me next? No. Rhaegar pulled a stool, sat facing him. I would see you healed. Heal madness. A ruined laugh. Madness is the dragon's price. Ask old Valyria. Ask the doom. You are not doomed, Rhaegar said, though he feared the lie tasted of ash. Aerys studied him, eyes sunken but sharp. You think chaining fire saves the realm. It does not. It only delays the burn. He leaned forward, voice dropping. When they come for you, and they will, remember the words they etched upon Dragonstone's forges. Fire is truth. Rhaegar looked away, throat tight. Rest, father. Let me walk the yard, Eris begged suddenly. Let me feel daylight on skin. Smell hot bread. Chains if you must, but air. Tears glazed his eyes. I am still king. Rhaegar nodded. You shall have the yard at dawn. A maester will walk with you. Not the bald one, Eris muttered. He stinks of garlic. I will choose another. Rhaegar rose. Sleep now. Tomorrow we speak again. As he left, Arthur fell into step. He grows lucid at times. The sword of the morning murmured. In those moments he pleads, and when lucidity fades, he curses every name. Let the maesters double his draught of milk of the poppy, Rhaegar sighed. I need him calm. Any news from the Rock? Tywin delays. We prod him tomorrow. Rhaegar hesitated. Arthur. Varys warns of faceless men. Put triple watch on Lyanna's door. Arthur looked at him, violet eyes unreadable. And Elias. A flush touched Rhaegar's cheeks. And Elias. Arthur nodded. None shall pass. Night lowered its purple veil. In the queen's apartments, Elia sat by a brazier cradling young Aegon, who fussed in his swaddling. Rhaenys lay on a bearskin rug, humming a Dornish tune while prodding carved wooden lions to dance with dragons. The fire painted her cheeks gold. Rhaegar entered quietly. Elia glanced up, worry clouds easing. He will not sleep tonight, she said of Aegon. Rhaegar took the infant, bouncing gently. My turn then. Elia, he added, voice soft but heavy. I must send you to Sunspear. Her dark eyes widened. Why? Dorne is safe. The Red Keep is target for assassins. If war comes. She shook her head fiercely. The realm must see me at your side. I carry your blood. Dorne's loyalty anchors here. It anchors with you wherever you stand. He paced, soothing Aegon's tiny grunts. But if the city falls. Elias' fingers squeezed his sleeve. You fear too much. Keep me here and I may speak to Tyrell envoys. Calm the storm. Send me away in whispers, claim you hide your sickly wife. Sick in body is not weakness, he said. But she only smiled, tired and wise. He sighed. 1 fortnight. Then we decide. She inclined her head. He bent, kissed Rhaenys, laid the babe back in Elia's arms, and drifted to the balcony. Down in the courtyard, torches flickered like orange petals borne on a night wind. Somewhere, a silent assassin might measure distances, study shadows. He imagined a faceless figure sliding between pillars, knife intent on crimsoning the dawn. The thought quickened his breath. He felt Lyanna's absence like a bruise. How many lives balanced upon his vow? How many loves? Across the city in White Sword Tower, Barristan Selmy knelt before a map spread on a cedar table. Arthur Dayne hovered opposite, fingers tracing the pattern of gates. Oswell Went, Jonathan Derry, and Gerald Hightower stood behind them. Candles guttered, their wax pooling like melted snow. Outside the wind rustled banners. Faceless men come by water, Oswell muttered. The Ragman's harbor swarms with Bravosi crews. We search every hold, we'll find nothing. We search every hold, Barristan said, voice flint. Sewers, wells, granaries. The city watch lacks the numbers, Hightower objected. And crown coffers dribble. Arthur reached into a satchel, drew 3 silver blades. Slim, leaf-shaped, etched with old Valyrian script. I requisition these from the Dornish garrison. Dragon steel from Sunspear's vault. We arm 3 pairs of trusted officers. If assassins strike, they meet bite for bite. Derry took 1 blade, balanced it on his palm. Moonlight caught the edge. We fight shadows with sharper shadows then. Not shadows, Barristan said. Honor. He looked at Arthur, and for an instant the tower filled with a silent exchange. 2 men forged in binding oaths. Brothers to a wildfire king, and to a prince who might yet save or ruin thousands. Whatever came, steel alone would not preserve honor. But steel would buy the moments needed for honor to stand. Riverlight flickered across the stone teeth of Blackwater Rush as 3 skiffs slipped from shadowed moorings below the Butcher's Ball district. The rowers, hooded, unbearably silent, cut swift, looping arcs through reflected torch glare until they slid beneath a moss-crusted arch leading to the storm drains under Visenia's hill. Rats hissed, scattering. The skiffs ground to a halt against a shallow bank. Two figures rose, dripping. Beneath their cloaks, tight black leggings bore neither crest nor color. Only the faintest sheen of oiled leather betrayed hidden knives. A third figure lingered in the boat, holding a lantern that emitted no flame, just a shard of pale alchemist light gleaming through etched quartz. The two clambered up a narrow stair hacked centuries earlier to reach forgotten cellars. After 3 turns, the stair ended at a round iron door secured by a single bar door key. One assassin pressed ear to metal, then drew a curved pick and slipped it through a venthole. The bar lifted with a soft chink. Beyond lay a corridor lined with dormant wildfire pots, green glass opaque and foul, packed in straw. The leading assassin touched a jar, searching for warmth. None. They nodded to their companion, who produced a glass vial. 1 drop of colorless liquid splashed onto the straw. Nothing happened. The assassin corked the vial and replaced it. Better to know the measure of a dragon's breath before you cut its throat. They passed between jaws, emerging at a spiral staircase lit dimly by torch marks on the stone. Up they went, each footfall timed to the hush of distant wind. On the 5th landing they halted. A iron-bound door flanked by 2 red-scarred scorch marks, long ago battle damage. A new wooden beam barred entry from the other side, faint lantern glow seeping through a thumb-wide crack. The leading assassin knelt, inspecting hinges. Then shoulders tensed. They felt vibration, footsteps inside, the knock of a guard's boot, unhurried. The assassin pressed a palm flat against the doorframe, closed eyes, breathed. The footfalls paused. A cough. Then the guard moved on. A silent count of 50. The assassin eased a slender wire under the beam, lifting. A gentle tap sounded, masked by wind. The beam rose enough to permit the latch to turn. The door opened, yet no assassin slipped through. Because 2 sword points waited behind it, Dane's Dawn, burning in the lantern glow, and Barristan's Longblade. The leading assassin froze, face blank beneath a lacquered half-mask. Dawn's pale edge whispered against their throat. In Bravos they charge extra for kings, Arthur Dane said. Who pays for princes? The assassin did not blink. In a voice neither male nor female, faintly musical, they answered in the Valyrian of Bravos. A man serves no price. Barristan's blade advanced a hairbreadth. Yet here you stand. To remind you, the assassin said. Some chains cannot bind what walks in shadow. Put down your knives, Arthur ordered, and walk back into that shadow. The assassin gazed past them, perhaps calculating angles. Then slowly they opened their hands. Twin needles clinked to stone. But even as they knelt, their companion behind lunged. The lantern shattered. Alchemist's light sprayed. Glow but no heat, casting color-shifted silhouettes. Barristan pivoted, blade ringing off steel. Arthur dragged the first assassin through the threshold, door slamming behind in time to seal the second outside. Inside the stairwell, the captured assassin inhaled. But not a plea emerged, rather a shrill whistle. Piercing. From below, faint echoes answered, more whistles. Company, Barristan warned. Arthur shoved the assassin against wall and struck with the hilt. The figure slumped. He sheathed on, hoisted the limp body across shoulders. Barristan barred the door again, then spat a curse. Little cracks webbed the jamb where combustible fluid glittered. Alchemist lantern oil eats oak, he muttered. We must move. Captain Gaunt's patrol waits at the next junction, Arthur said. We deliver this viper, then flush the sewer. They moved quickly. Behind them, the door's wood hissed as chemical agent burned. Acrid smoke chased their boots. Somewhere beyond, the second assassin retreated into labyrinthine dark, whistling patterns that told other hidden hunters the game had changed. Morning found the Red Keep on high alert. Royal guards in crisp livery doubled at each stairway. City Watch patrolled the outer wards, and maesters sealed every available bottle of wildfire behind reinforced iron shutters. No public proclamation named the attempted infiltration, but rumors speared through streets. Pale ghosts haunted the drains, dragons wept green tears, Queen and Wolf wore daggers to breakfast. Lyanna received the news while sparring with Arthur Dane at dawn. She dropped her practice sword and demanded the assassin's name. Arthur admitted the prisoner spoke none. "We found a coin in their boot," he said. "Iron, stamped with a teardrop. A coin of the House of Black and White." Lyanna looked to the city's sprawl. "So Tywin spends freely. Or another does," Arthur cautioned. "The faceless trade in secrets more than gold." Lyanna lifted her practice blade. "Then we keep secrets few and simple." Arthur saluted, and they resumed their dance. The clack of wood echoed through the training yard. Dust motes burst in beams of rising sun. Her strikes came swift, precise. Wolf lean grace meeting star-forged poise. Arthur smiled behind his guard. "You learn." "I learn to trust my feet," she said, executioner quick slice threatening his flank. "You have more than feet," Arthur replied, parrying, riposte. Their spar carried them toward the terrace parapet. Lyanna shifted stance to the braided style of bravos. Knowledge gleaned from Benjen's stories of a traveler sworn brother at the wall. Arthur chuckled and met her blow with a Dorn twist. Wood hammered wood. She felt the shock run her arms, rattle her teeth. "Dawn tomorrow," Arthur said, stepping back. "Ride with me. I want you safe in the tourney field. We'll test your real sword." "Deserjoilman." Lyanna shook sweat from brow. "Tomorrow's tasks fill my saddlebag, sir." "They always will." He lowered his weapon. "The prince rides to the sept after midday to swear his oath before the High Septon. Regency under faith's witness. You should attend." "I will." She lowered her blade. "And if shadows strike the sept?" Arthur's smile was grim. "Then they strike under 7 statues. May the gods pity them." At noon the sept of Baelor soared against cloudless blue, its crystal dome scattering a spectrum across marble steps. Pilgrims thronged the square, kept at a respectful distance by ranks of gold cloaks carrying quarterstaves tipped in bronze. The smell of incense and crushed lemon balm wove through the air. Within, the sept echoed like some vast seashell. Whispers rolling under high ribs of stone. Braziers burning low. A dozen arch-septs and silent sisters lined the aisle, while the swollen High Septon awaited beneath the mother's statue. In place of the iron throne's sigil, 7 banners of equal size draped behind him. Star Dragon, Sunburst, Direwolf, Falcon, Rose, Stag. Tyrell's inclusion had required hours of negotiation. The Reach Lord sent no envoy, but an empty banner would have screamed defiance. Rhaegar processed barefoot, ceremonial sword unbelted, harp in hand. His purple mantle swept cracked tiles once trod by Aegon the Conqueror. Behind him walked Elia in sand-pink silk, frail but luminous. Behind Elia strode Lyanna Stark, hair bound in a single warrior braid, and Ned Stark in heavy gray. Jon Arryn, Luwin Martell, and Robert Baratheon completed the retinue. Arthur and Barristan held flanking lines, with white cloaks gleaming. The High Septon intoned prayer. Rhaegar knelt before the 7-pointed star carved into the dais, and placed his palm upon its center. Voice clear, he swore to rule as protector in justice and mercy until King Aerys be restored. He swore to wield no fire, save that which warmed the innocent, to spill no blood save that which shielded children, and to set aside crown's pride before realm's need. Each vow rang beneath the vaulted ceiling and returned in soft ripples, as though stone itself repeated the words for memory's sake. Lyanna listened and felt the weight of the promises settle in her bones. She wondered if vows were chains or wings. She wondered what Ned thought. His profile was carved from northern granite, yet she sensed his heart thrummed hard. She felt Robert shift restlessly, hammer calluses flexing. When the vows concluded, the High Septon raised a scroll sealed with 7 colors. "Let none gainsay this charge," he pronounced. "Until the king's humors are healed, let the queen's tower guard his person, and the crown prince guard the realm." Applause rolled through the sept. polite at first, then thunderous from the small folk in rear galleries. Rhaegar rose and turned. His gaze found Lyanna. For an instant, the world shrank. Marble pillars blurred. Incense dimmed. Applause muted. Only her eyes remained. Smoke and winter. She lifted a corner of her mouth. Silent benediction. But the moment shattered when double doors at the western transept burst open. A messenger in Lannister crimson stumbled, breath ragged. "Riders," he gasped. "The golden host crosses the Mander. 20,000. Banners flying." Gasps skittered like leaves. Robert gripped his hammer. Ned shot Lyanna a glance that said storms brew. Rhaegar steadied himself. "We expected as much. Gentle lords, return to the holdfast. We convene council at dusk." The High Septon tried to drown the commotion with blessing chants. But even holy echoes could not muffle the clang of fate. Twilight painted the small hall in bruised purples and dying scarlets. Candles burned upon the council table. Maps sprawled beneath ivory waitstones shaped like wyverns. Lords crowded in wrinkled silks, armor half buckled. Rhaegar stood at the head, voice measured, as Jon Arryn read Tywin's proclamation. The Western Lord marched to ensure King Aerys Cerise from traitorous captivity. 20,000 now, Tarly repeated. Another 15,000 on call. "We meet them at the Blackwater," Bolton suggested. But Ned shook his head. "Battle on our doorstep invites slaughter of the city," the Northman argued. "Small folk will hang for Tywin's contempt. Then we ride to meet him on open ground," Robert said, thumping fist. "Drag him off his horse and split that pretty lion helm." Rhaegar lifted a hand. "Steel will answer steel soon enough, but let words gallop first." He nodded to Lewin Martell. "Uncle, draft a raven to Lord Lannister. Offer parley at Bitterbridge." Randall Tarly frowned. "He will never—" "He must appear reasonable," Rhaegar said, "or he loses the Tyrells outright. Bitterbridge sits on their border. If he refuses, Mace Tyrell may bloom red." "They," Jon Arryn added, "we also send ravens to Highgarden. Each hour Tywin marches without parley weakens his moral claim." Bolton chuckled. "You mean we fillet his honor, feed it to his own lions?" "Precisely." Rhaegar swept the map. "Meanwhile, Robert sails tomorrow. Renly remains here to dole grain. Ned rides north at dawn to gather Stark banners along the neck. Bolton rides with him. Dreadfort and White Harbor share the Wolf's Road." Bolton's smile vanished. Duty trumped mischief. He bowed. "And you?" Ned asked Rhaegar. "I ride to Bitterbridge if Tywin agrees," the prince said. "If not, I march 40 leagues south with Dane and Selmy. Secure the Mander crossings." Voices swirled like rapids as scribes inked orders. Quills squeaked. Seals dripped wax. In the din, Elia rose from her chair. "My prince," she said, "if you ride, I wish to ride with you." Lyanna stiffened. All conversation paused. Rhaegar turned calmly. "Elia." "I tire of chambers," she said, voice fierce despite tremor. "Dorne taught me spears and sandstorms. Let me stand beside you in truth, not shadow." Bedornai. Ned saw Lyanna's fingers clench around chairwood. Robert's brows knit. Pycelle made a faint choking sound. Rhaegar bowed his head. "Your spirit humbles me. Yet the roads will be harsh. Spare me fear for your health." Elia inhaled, looked away. Pride warred with exhaustion. After a fragile silence, she sat again. "Then at least take Dornish outriders." "I will," he assured. Their eyes lingered, an exchange both tender and accepting. Lyanna relaxed, though color lingered on her cheeks. Jon Arryn tapped scrolls for signatures. Dawn nears. Men must sleep if they're to ride. Bemser. Council dispersed. Ned followed Lyanna into columned hall, catching her sleeve. "Sister, you entangle hearts like trout lines in spring thaw." She met his gaze coolly. "Truth entangles itself. We merely choose whether to struggle." "And when the trout tires, does it drown?" he asked. She squeezed his forearm. "Not if it learns the water." Then, she strode toward shadows where Arthur Dayne waited. Ned watched her go. heart cold and proud in equal measure. He prayed, not for the first time, that the old gods kept her path clearer than his doubts. That night, Rhaegar donned light mail and climbed the Tower of the Hand alone. On the roof, he found the quiet he needed. Wind tugging his cloak, stars burning. In one hand, he held his harp. In the other, a folded parchment, a ballad half scribbled. He sat on a crenel stone and let his fingers wander the strings, shaping a melody neither joyous nor sorrowful, but tentative. Like dawn's first footstep across a field, he played for Ilya, for the children, for Lyanna, for Arthur's burden, for Robert's storm, for Ares locked in silvered night. He played for Tywin's pride and the wildfire that slept restless. He played, ultimately, for the realm. A lullaby of caution, a summons to courage. In that high vantage, he did not see the small cloaked figure moving along the keep's inner wall below, faceless but not unseen by every sentinel. Nor did he sense the soft click of a crossbow's trigger far beyond the walls, where a lone archer squatted in a derelict bell tower across the city, sighting the silhouette of a prince in starlight. The bolt flew, hissing through night, but chance or gods guided it wide. It clattered off the stone 2 paces from Rhaegar's boot, sparking as it spun into the dark. Rhaegar stood, startled. Guards shouted. Somewhere the archer fled, leaping rooftop gaps like a wraith. Rhaegar touched the still quivering bolt and understood. The war had begun. Though armies had not yet met, music would not lull hatred to sleep. He plucked one more string, an abrupt, final note that seemed to slice the hush in 2. Then he slung the harp and descended the tower. Dawn returned, and with it sails on the Blackwater. Robert Baratheon's war galley, stag roar, unfurled black silk and gold. Trumpeters blasted farewell. Watching from the quay, Lyanna felt an ache. Robert's blue eyes found hers on the rampart. He raised a wineskin and saluted, though she could not see if hurt or hope shadowed his grin. Then the galley's oars dipped, and wine caught canvas, and the Storm Lord glided seaward toward blood and fame. Along the King's Road north, Ned and Bolton rode at the head of 300 horse, Riswell trumpets, and Manderley drums answering each other like distant thunder. Behind them trundled a single covered wagon, loaded with pine casks of armor and ale, Ned's gift to every holdfast he passed, a token of the realm's new generosity. The men cheered when Ned lifted a flask. Snow might not fall on their shoulders yet, but they carried winter with them. Within the Red Keep, Elia kissed her children and oversaw the packing of her litter. She would remain another fortnight, but she made ready all the same, so that at 1 hour's notice they might flee. She ordered the Dornish spears to practice arrow deflection drills, and paid a seamstress to line the children's cloaks with mail discs thin as parchment. She watched Lyanna train in the yard and thought, that girl moves like Doran's desert wind, hot and merciless, and wondered if, should all crumble, the wind might carry her children to safety when walls came down. 3 days later, Rhaegar rode through Lion Gate, with a column of knights gleaming red crimson under dawn. Arthur Dayne bore the white dragon standard. Barristan rode beside a wheeled cage holding the hooded assassin. The prince paused on the drawbridge looking back. High on the battlements stood Lyanna in gray cloak, hair streaming. He raised his fist in salute. She matched the gesture, and though the distance swallowed words, they needed none. Then he spurred his charger and set path for Bitterbridge's uncertain meadow. As hoofbeats faded, Lyanna descended to the yard. She unhooked her cloak, strapped twin swords, and strode toward the kennels where ravens nested in high lofts. She penned 3 quick letters, one to Benjen at the wall, one to Howland Reed in the neck, one to Mage Mormont on Bear Isle. She wrote of truths and rumors, of lions loose and dragons shackled. She sealed each with direwolf wax and watched the birds vanish north. When she returned to the courtyard, Arthur Dayne's squire approached with a leather satchel. Sir Arthur said you should have these, my lady. Inside lay 3 white candles infused with obsidian dust, a gift from the Shadow Tower, to ward off faceless glamours. She thanked the boy, though her smile felt brittle. For in her heart, she sensed the realm drawing breath before a scream. The cords of fate pulled taut. Storm clouds massed above the Mander. A lion's roar cut across the plains. In King's Landing, women gathered kindling, fearing siege, while children chased each other through alleys, unaware of powder buried beneath. She thought of the wolf's words, not chains or wings, but water. So she breathed, deep and cold, and resolved to flood every fire before it could rise. Across rolling fields of late summer grass, Tywin Lannister's host advanced in flawless order. Spears glittered like wheat beneath a harvest sun. Siege towers trundled behind teams of oxen. Scouts galloped along flanks wearing crimson pennants tipped with gold bells. The Lion of Casterly Rock stood at the column's head, astride a pale destrier. His armor shone but bore no ornament beyond the lion's small sigil on his breast. A deliberate statement. Grandeur was for fools. Power spoke with steel. Near Bitterbridge, a lone rider approached carrying a white banner quartered with sun and dragon. Tywin's outriders moved to intercept, but the Lion Lord signaled restraint. As the rider neared, Tywin recognized Sir Willem Derry, age-bent yet stiffly proud. "My Lord Hand," Willem said, invoking the title Tywin had relinquished. "His Highness awaits you by the old bridge ford. He comes under peace." "Peace," Tywin echoed. "Peace is the dream of children. Tell the prince I will meet him, but only if he dismounts and wades the ford to stand on the southern bank." Willem's lips thinned. "You would have him stand weaponless in your host's shadow, my lord." "I would have him remember courtesy," Tywin replied. With a curt nod, the old knight wheeled his horse and rode. Tywin signaled his captains. The host angled toward the river, where sycamores leaned over slow water. At the ford, Rhaegar waited. He had dismounted, helm tucked beneath one arm, sword absent. Barristan stood 10 paces behind. Arthur held the reins of Rhaegar's horse on the northern bank. Between them the Mander lapped calmly, no more than waist-high at center. Tywin arrived in a hush of stamping hooves. He swung down, handed his reins to a squire, and strode to the water's edge. For a moment, neither moved. Then Rhaegar stepped into the ford, boots sinking in silt. Cool water rose to his thighs. Midstream he paused. Tywin regarded him, eyes like cut jade, but did not advance. "Your Grace," the Lion Lord called. "You stand on treacherous ground." "The river's bed feels sure enough," Rhaegar said. "Rivers shift." Tywin clasped gloved hands behind his back. "Madness rules your regency. You would dethrone a dragon for singing songs of fear." "I would heal him," Rhaegar replied. "This realm need not bleed." Tywin's gaze flicked to Arthur waiting on shore, then back. "Heal, or crown yourself. Father taught me crowns weigh heavier than chains." "I taught you pride may drown kingdoms," Tywin said. His voice was not loud, yet the word pride carried across the water like a thrown lance. "Leave the king's side, bend the knee, and the rock stands with you. Persist, and my host answers your insult." Rhaegar drew breath. "We share a desire for stability. The king's rage will burn you too. Join the regency, guide it, and no lion's mane need singe." "Memnon?" A faint smile touched Tywin's mouth, though it did not reach his eyes. "You would seat me again at council, under the watch of the wolf and the snake." "I decline." "Then what do you seek?" Tywin's silence lasted half a heartbeat too long. Wind rustled sycamore leaves. "My daughter," he said finally. "A queen." Sun glinted on the water. Red Circe, and the lion's host turns home. An arrow sang overhead, loosed from some hidden bow. A warning, perhaps. Arthur's hand snapped to dawn. Barristan barked an order. On either bank knights tensed, horses skittered. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. "You know I am wed." "Bastards do not bar thrones," Tywin said. Rhaegar shook his head. "I love my wife. I honor her. I will not put her aside." Tywin's expression did not change, yet disappointment rippled like ice cracking. "Love," he murmured. "A child's shield." He turned. "So be it." "Wait," Rhaegar called. Tywin paused, half-turned. "Ride with me to King's Landing," the prince said, urgency breaking composure. "See my father. See the wildfire. Decide then." Tywin considered. If I come with full host. Rhaegar knew that meant siege. Then come. Walls do not tremble at reason's approach. Tywin's smile returned, thin as parchment. Walls tremble at lead seed. Steel and fire will speak now. He bowed, mock gracious, and strode to his horse. Rhaegar watched him mount. Across the ford, Arthur's eyes brimmed warning. Barristan called for archers to stand ready should treachery fly. But Tywin only raised a hand, spun his destrier, and galloped back to the golden sea of spears. Trumpets barked. The host rolled south again, toward the Roserad, toward the capital. Rhaegar waded out, water streaming from mail. Arthur met him, clenched his shoulder. He will not parley again. No, Rhaegar whispered. Heart sore? The next meeting will be beneath black banners. He mounted, turned toward his column. Overhead a cloud passed the sun, casting shadow across both armies as if the heavens lowered a funeral veil. Somewhere unseen, birds rose in startled flight. Rhaegar lifted the dragon standard. Knights leveled lances. And so began the march of dawn-lit spears east toward King's Landing, where a wolf-maid waited, and a queen tended slow fires, and a mad king dreamed of green flames swallowing sin. The first fingers of dusk brushed the crenellations of King's Landing, when the riders thundered through the Lion Gate, breathless, dust-veiled, their banners torn by speed. The city buzzed already with the hive's restlessness. News of Tywin's host had seeped into every tavern and every lace-maker's garret. And yet, the arrival of these scouts, bearing the dragon's sigil and the crescent sun of Dorne, turned murmurs to a full-throated roar. Somewhere in the maze of streets, a dog barked. Bells on a wine cellar's barrow clanged in syncopation with galloping hooves. By the time the winded horses clattered into the Red Keep's outer yard, a dozen stewards were sprinting ahead of them toward the Tower of the Hand. Lyanna Stark heard the commotion while sharpening her sword on the barrack steps. She slid the whetstone into her belt, rose in one fluid motion, and crossed the yard in long strides, boot heels clicking against damp flagstones. A pair of gold cloaks parted. The lead scout dismounted, staggered, then knelt to spill a lover's whisper of fear into her ear. Tywin had turned east after Bitterbridge. His vanguard would reach the Blackwater's south bank within 5 days, his siege engines within 10. Worse, Lord Mace Tyrell had finally moved, but uncertainty clouded his purpose. His banners rode north along the Roserad, neither openly for nor against the Lion. A tide with no certain course. Lyanna thanked the scout, handed him a waterskin, and strode for the council chambers, hair whipping behind like a sable pennon. In the vaulted hall, she met Ilya crossing with her maester. A silent communion moved between woman and wolf. The princess' eyes rimmed red from sleepless hours, yet alive with steel. The wolf-maid's gait loped with restless purpose. Without pause they turned the same corner, climbed the same stair, and reached the double doors of the Hand's solar. Inside, Jon Arryn hunched over a map pinned by silver daggers. Bolton stood to one side, pale eyes glittering. Prince Luwin read a scrap of parchment while Tarly conferred with Lord Chelstead about grain stores. All conversation halted at Lyanna's entrance, but she wasted no breath on courtesy. Tywin crosses the Wendwater in 5 days, she announced. 10 for his engines. Tyrell marches, intent uncertain. Arryn rubbed weary temples. Ravens. Already winging. Lord Mace rarely moves without his mother, Bolton observed. If Olenna counsels caution, he could be hedging until the last toll. Or until someone sweetens the garden with richer soil, Luwin said dryly. Gold flows both ways in war. Ilya took a seat beside the map, voice soft but firm. We must prepare the city for siege but avoid panic. Bread lines tomorrow at dawn in every district, and water wagons at midday. If folk think we starve them, doors will open to any liberator in Lion's Crimson. Tarly grunted approval. I'll set the watch on ration patrol. Thieves swing where all can see. Lyanna shook her head. Hanging small folk breeds anger. Brand cut Perce's hands if you must, but hang only proven spies. Mercy from a wolf? Bolton murmured. She met his gaze. Practicality. Corpses inspire revolt. cripples inspire caution. Aaron cleared his throat. And Mace Tyrell? Send Sir Garland roses and royal gratitude, Elia suggested. The Knight of Flowers admires chivalry. Trust between princes and gardeners may blossom if tended. Lyanna nodded. I will draft a letter tonight. A gift of Dornish wine and northern furs. Demnuluna. Does Tyrell like fur? Tarly asked. He will when cold winds blow from the neck, Lyanna answered. A page burst in. Sir Arthur Dane requests Lady Lyanna at the smithy yard. Urgent. Lyanna excused herself and followed the boy down winding stairs past hewn archways thick with torch smoke. At the yard, a circle of soldiers surrounded something draped in canvas. Arthur waited beside the bundle, dawn-bright armor muted by soot. He smiled tautly when Lyanna arrived, then whipped the canvas free. Beneath lay a sword. Not Dawn. Arthur's own was at his hip, but another blade forged recently in the dragon pit's seldom used forges. Its length glimmered striped silver and shadow, edge thin enough to whisper through dust motes. Valyrian steel. Lyanna breathed. A cousin alloy, Arthur said. Maester Bellis discovered a cache of old Valyrian ingots in the vaults beneath Summerhall. Not true dragonfire forging, but near. He lifted the blade, turned the flat to catch forge fire. For you. Lyanna accepted it, surprised by the feather weight, the perfect balance kissing her palm. Her heart stackatoed. Why? Because soon you may need it. Arthur's violet eyes softened. And because Prince Rhaegar ordered it, should dread grow near. Blood warmed her cheeks. She sheathed the sword in the scabbard presented with it, black leather set with a single moonstone. Tell him I will carry it with honor. Arthur's smile turned rueful. Tell him yourself. He rides back tomorrow. His outriders slipped past Tywin at nightfall. Dawn should see him at the gate. Relief and fear mingled. She inclined her head. Thank you. Arthur touched 2 fingers to his brow, and she left. Blade heavy not with weight, but promise. Moonless night draped the city when the assassin known as the Kindly Brother emerged from a fishmonger's cart in the dark wash canal. He wore no mask. His new face, crafted from the flayed skin of a pickpocket, sufficed. He padded barefoot across slick planks, scent of brine and rotting carp thick in his nostrils. 2 tasks remained. Deliver a poisoned bolt to the wolfmaid's heart and ignite the wildfire under Flea Bottom as distraction. The first attempt on the prince had failed. The many-faced god rarely required a second try on the same soul, but sometimes accepted collateral. In war, all were candle flames. He slid through alleyways where rats squeaked underfoot, climbed a crumbling wall, and landed on the roof of a potter's kiln overlooking the western ward of Megger's Holdfast. Below, torches blurred as sentries moved. He traced patrol patterns, lips moving in silent count dots. A shadow detached from deeper shadow behind him. Steel hissed, dawn-bright metal glimmered. Before the assassin could wheel, Lancaster, captain of Arthur's personal scouts, thrust a narrow blade between ribs. No sound escaped the faceless throat. He toppled onto red tiles, eyes widening at the slick warm bloom. Footsteps rushed up. 2 white cloaks, swords naked. Lancaster cleaned steel on coarse cloth. Spider's whispers were right, he said. 3 left now by Varys' count. Barristan Selmy surveyed the corpse. Send it to the yards. Let small folk see faceless death wears mortal flesh. He fixed Lancaster with blue gaze. And double torches on every roof. Wolves prowl in darkness. Bah! Rhaegar's return came on the breath of dawn. Trumpets atop the gate of the gods keened high and mournful. Yet the city's watch held fast in disciplined silence. Arthur's order. No cheers to wake fears. No hails to mark vulnerable vantage. The prince rode at a canter, cloak torn, mail crusted with dried mud. Behind him stretched a ragged file of weary knights, fewer than those who'd marched out. Lyanna watched from the inner barbican, soul twisting. His posture sagged, but spirit radiated stubborn flame. In the yard he dismounted. She reached him before the grooms. He offered a tired smile and clasped both her forearms. The lion roars. I heard. She searched his face for wounds. Saw only bruised circles beneath eyes. Did he parley? For a price I would not pay. He scanned the battlements. We must hold, then bleed him until roses bloom red. She guided him toward the Tower of the Hand, ignoring stares. Their hands brushed, a shock of familiarity so fierce it stole breath. She forced calm. Ilya prepared soup. He squeezed her fingers once, then released. I will thank her, and confess my failure. You did not fail, Lyanna said. You offered peace, he chose pride. They entered the council chamber. Light angled across the map still pinned by daggers. Ilya greeted him with quiet relief. Eyes flicking from his torn cloak to Lyanna's new sword. John Arryn poured wine, and conversation resumed like a war drum. Steady, inexorable. Engines in 10 days, Rhaegar confirmed. He sends outriders along the Wendwater to scour villages for supply. Any farmer resisting will feed crows. We can deny him forage, Tarly said. Burn fields between here and the Wendwater. But feed the city, Elliot countered. House Redwine's fleet approaches from the arbor, Lewin announced, a fresh raven scroll in hand. They claim neutrality, but their wine ships could supply us if Tyrell sides here. Bolton chuckled. They will supply whichever side pays and lives to toast. Rhaegar closed his eyes briefly. We require allies now, not tomorrow. He turned to Lyanna. How many northern banners ride? 10,000 to Mo Kalen already, she said. Manderley sails 50 longships down the Bight. Risewell and Reed hold the causeways. Another 15,000 can march within the month if roads stay clear. Danax. A month may be blood too late, Arryn murmured. Rhaegar paced, light glinting off his bandage. I will ride for Storm's End tonight, rally Renly's levies. If we harry Tywin's flanks with Baratheon archers and staggered Dornish cavalry, his siege may crumble before stone cracks. Ilya paled. You just returned. He met her gaze. War allows no rest. The crown's hope lies in motion. Lyanna's heart clenched. Take Dawn. Arthur rides with you. And send another for Highgarden. Olenna will not accept slaughter at city gates. Blood, spattered roses rot quick. Nadi. Arryn nodded. I will pen letters. Golden Tree accounts show 50,000 dragons owed Tyrell by the throne. Promise payment upon victory, with interest. Rhaegar smiled wryly. We pay debt to purchase survival. Better poor than ash, Ilya whispered. Bolton lifted a brow. Some debts are repaid in darker coin. Nightfall cloaked decisions. Rhaegar kissed his daughter and son, lingered long in Ilya's doorway, whispered promises. He found Lyanna in the armory, strapping bracers. For a moment, words failed. She slid a dagger into his belt. Return before harvest, she said. I will keep the wolves at the gate. He brushed her cheek with gloved fingertips. And I will bring grain to your table. Then he left, cloak snapping behind like storm-torn sails. 3 days later, the plains south of Kingswood trembled under Tywin Lannister's advance. Ziga Towers, the height of Hightower's spire, groaned on iron wheels. Smoke from 1,000-strong forges blurred the horizon. Scouts returned with reports of empty villages. Fields burned, wells fouled. Tywin listened, expression stone. He summoned his quartermaster. Move ration wagons to the van. Every man receives half measure until city falls. The quartermaster demurred. Tywin repeated himself. The man obeyed, bloodless. That night, in his pavilion, flickering lanterns cast bars across Tywin's face like caged shadows. Kevin Lannister joined him over a map of the capital. Our sappers report wildfire under Fleabottom and the Guildhall district, Kevin said. If we breach the walls, blaze may hinder advance. Tywin touched a finger to the ward of the 7 shrines. Then we turn the king's torch on his own dogs. Detonate when we storm. He lifted his gaze, cold green. Find the alchemist's tunnels. Plant charges. Kevin hesitated. Collateral would be high. Thousands of small folk. A lesser toll than decades of dragon's madness. Tywin snapped scroll case shut. When history judges, let it weigh results, not tears. Outside, banners flapped in windless dark. At storm's end, lightning crawled across midnight seas. Rhaegar arrived soaked, escorted by Arthur Dayne, Barristan, and a wedge of white cloaks. Renly greeted them in the great hall, with barrels of cider and fresh-cut roses strewn across flagstones. The young lord listened to the prince's appeal while thunder muttered beyond high windows. By dawn they stood atop the drum tower battlement, wind whipping cloaks. Renly's face, so eager for pageantry days ago, now carved from responsibility. "Robert writes of pirate victories," he said, handing Rhaegar a salt-stained parchment. "But he also writes of doubts, Tyrell playing both courts, Derry's ravens intercepted." Rhaegar scanned Robert's bold scrawl. "My hammer sings, but the lions march. Tell your silver bird that pride won't break stone alone." He folded the letter. "Robert's hammer will sing louder if his banners march." Renly leaned arms on wet Merlin. "The Stormlands still love your house for ending Durrandon kings? Odd loyalty. Wanting the dragon that burned you?" A grin flickered, then died. "I will raise 10,000. But sail north of the Wendwater. Strike the lion's flank only when you signal." "Signal?" "Your song," Renly said. "Play the same tune you played at Harrenhal. Our scouts will hear." Rhaegar embraced him. "You honor me. Just bring Robert back alive." Renly whispered, voice lost to wind. "He loves your vision, though it pains him." Rhaegar felt tears almost rise. "Tell him the realm will need his laugh." In the reach at Bitterbridge, Lady Olenna Tyrell gathered her small council of vassals beneath a trellis weighted by sun-fat grapes. Mace sat uncomfortably beside her, sticky in midday heat. Messages from Highgarden lay opened like gutted fish, reports of lion levies through the Shield Islands, whispers of Dornish spear columns shadowing the marches, and the unthinkable, the Citadel's conclave urging Regency support. Olenna sipped lemon water. "The Archmaesters smell smoke. They pray we water the flame." Mace bristled. "We cannot anger Lord Tywin. His gold lines our coffers. Gold buys bread but not honor." She tapped a scroll penned in Rhaegar's elegant hand. "The prince offers repayment plus vineyards in the arbor for half the sum. And if he loses, then lions rule the ashes, and we still have gold. But we also bear guilt for burning harvests." Her stare froze him. "Do you fancy songs?" Sung of Mace the Meek, who watched small folk fry. Mace swallowed. "Draft a reply," Olenna continued. "We treat with the dragon quietly. Send Paxter Redwine's fleet north with grain. Have Garland ride east with 3,000 knights. Escort deliveries, he'll say." She folded hands. "And tell Loras to polish his armor. Flowers should bloom before the storm." Nagarteo. On the fourth night of Rhaegar's absence, King's Landing dreamt of fire. The sky glowed faintly in the south where Tywin's forges blotted stars. In Maegor's holdfast, Elia sat alone by her son's cradle, humming. A soft tap reached her door. Lyanna entered bearing a bowl of candied ginger. "Sleep eludes," Lyanna said. Elia accepted a sliver. "The taste wakes memory of Dornan's market stalls." They shared silence. Torchlight shimmered on Elias' thin wrists, the new blade at Lyanna's hip. "Do you love him?" Elia asked suddenly, voice barely above breathing. Lyanna's jaw clenched. She met the princess's dark gaze unflinching. "I would fight for him until breath leaves." She hesitated. "Love? Yes. But I would not steal his children's mother." Elias' eyes filled. "He loves you too. I see it when he speaks your name without sound." She stroked baby Aegon's downy head. "Yet he loves the realm more. That may break him before any blade." Lyanna's throat ached. She knelt. "If the city falls, I will get you aboard a ship. Dawnrunner still waits at the quay. Fast and narrow." "Namti." Elias smiled, weary. "If the city falls, song is done. But thank you." A sudden trembling rattled the fragile calm. Deep beneath their feet, a muffled thud sounded, followed by faint screams echoing up the stair. Lyanna shot to her feet, ripped sword from sheath. Outside, guards shouted, Then another boom rumbled, dust drifting from ceiling joists. "The Guildhall district," Lyanna breathed. They lit the wildfire. Ilya scooped Aegon, called for Rhaenys. Lyanna darted into corridor where Arthur Dayne sprinted with half-buckled cuirass. "Explosion near Cobbler's Square," he said. "Flame rising fast. Faceless sabotage," Lyanna guessed. "Or lion sappers." Arthur signaled 2 white cloaks. "Escort princess and children to cellars beneath the sept. Vaulted stone." He pointed to Lyanna. "With me." They raced down spiral stairs, boots striking sparks. Smoke-licked corridors, acrid and green-tinged. Reaching the yard, they saw the sky to the west painted sickly emerald, plume twisting into night like a dragon reborn. Bells clanged. Citizens poured from tenements, faces masks of terror. The city watch herded them toward river quays. "Contain the fires," Arthur barked at a captain. "Bucket lines from the black water. Seal any north wind alleyways with damp wool." Lyanna sprinted ahead, sword useless against flame, but heart demanded action. As she crossed a stone footbridge, a figure darted from alley brandishing curved knife, etched with Braavosi sigils. Reflex begged. Steel flashed. Her new blade met attacker's wrist. Valyrian mimic cleaved bone effortlessly. The assassin crumpled. Lyanna knelt, ripped off mask, plain face of a dockside whore, yet eyes milky blank. Coin for the many-faced god. She rose, ran. Past the thieves' market. Heat slammed her as wildfire blazed inside a collapsed bathhouse. Barristan and Lancaster's men dragged half-burned townsfolk clear. Dot. The green inferno writhed but did not spread. Stone walls penned it. She met Barristan's weary gaze amid shimmering heat. 3 vaults ignited, he reported. "We closed the 4th. Your brother's casks of ale flooded the tunnel. Blessed be northern drink." Lyanna exhaled shakily. "Casualties? 200 maybe. But city stands." Screams spiked from a side lane. A woman dashed out ablaze, hair haloed in emerald flame. A watchman tackled her, smothering cloak over body. Lyanna turned away, bile clawing throat. Arthur joined them. Blaze contained. "We lost Cobbler's Square. Nothing more, for now." Lyanna wiped sweat. Tywin's sappers timed this. Panic, then assault. "Not yet," Arthur said. His van still south of the Wendwater. But fear cracks walls quicker than rams. They trudged back toward the keep under choking sky. At sunrise the fires died, leaving ash snow drifting across blistered courtyards. Small folk wandered like ghosts, eyes burned red by smoke. Inside the Tower of the Hand, Jon Arryn announced grim numbers. 330 dead, half children, plus 20 gold cloaks. Granaries untouched, blaze localized. Ilya, pale but poised, ordered all bakers to distribute bread free that day. Priests of the Seven to walk the streets with waterskins. Maesters to treat burns in the Great Sept. Lyanna listened, silent. When meeting adjourned, she climbed the tower roof and stood in pre-dawn hush. Embers glowed on the horizon, faint as dying stars. She gripped the balustrade until knuckles whitened, then lifted eyes. The eastern sky tarnished into heartbreaking rose. Somewhere beyond that bloom, Rhaegar rode. She breathed sea salt air, prayed to gods old and new, and vowed if he fell she would still see the dawn break free of lion claws. 100 leagues away, Robert Baratheon's fleet sailed hard for the Blackwater Bay, holds packed with plundered Myrish gold, and 10,000 casks of Lyseni fire wine, meant as bribe for Tywin's foragers. But a raven from Renly found Robert a day out, bearing the coded harp note. Rhaegar calling the hammer home. Robert laughed until tears rolled, then roared for full sail. Storm-colored skies whipped foamy spray across decks as the fleet tacked north. Each gust carried war's scent. On the quarterdeck, Robert spoke with Maester Cresson. "Lannister bleeds only when cut," Robert said. "We slam his flank and draw back again and again like tide against cliff. One day cliff falls." "And the city?" Cresson asked. "City's walls, thicker than lion's hide." Cresson frowned. "Walls fall too." Robert gripped the hilt of his hammer. Then, I stand in the breach. He gazed north where seabirds wheeled over unseen shores. And the wolf stands beside the dragon, he murmured. Strange days. In the Vale, Ned Stark reached Gultan's harbor at sunset, his column dusty but unbroken. Gultan's lord offered fresh horses. Ned refused lavish feasts, accepted only salt and bread, and pressed on toward the bloody gate. Word from the Neck told of Bolton victories against lion scouts near the Trident, but also of 100 farmsteads burned by foragers. Ned's jaw hardened. He vowed each charred house would be answered in lion blood. At night by campfire, he wrote to Lyanna, "Hold fast. Winter marches south behind me." Each letter closed with the old words of House Stark. "The pack survives." He sealed them with direwolf wax and sent ravens winging through starlit dark. King Aerys remained confined yet restless. Milk of the poppy dulled his ire, but in lucid pockets he whispered to mice scurrying in straw, promising them lordships if they gnawed his chains. Maester Anselm reported moments of clarity. The king wept over Rhaella's grave memories, then spat curses at Elia, accusing her of Dornish plots. Guards replaced straw thrice daily. Each time they found scratches on the cell walls. Crude shapes of dragons devouring wolves. One evening, the king begged the maester draw near. "Tell my son," he croaked, eyes suddenly lucid and brimming. "Tell him the song was never about me." Tears carved tracks through grime. "He is the prince that was promised. I saw it in the flames before they turned green." He clutched Anselm's sleeve, voice fraying. "Tell him, fire can teach mercy if tempered by ice." Then lucidity shattered. He laughed, deep and ragged, demanding his dragons. Anselm conveyed the words to Elia and Lyanna in the solar. Elia clasped hands, brow drawn. Lyanna felt prickles along spine. "Ice," she whispered, thinking of snow-blanketed Winterfell, of Ned's steady gaze. Perhaps prophecy and war twisted like twin serpents. Perhaps hope lay where dragon fire met winter's hush. 1 week later, Tywin arrived before King's Landing. His host unfurled across rolling hills in disciplined arcs. Siege towers to the southeast, trebuchets along the ridge, spear walls in shallow trench lines. Gold and crimson tents sprouted among burned orchards. Standard poles rising like forest turned bizarre, lurid. Trumpets announced their claim. Lannister armor glittered under Juan's sun. 35,000 men strong Carte. King's Landing answered with thunder of bells. White cloaks lined the battlements. Lyanna stood atop the mudgate with Barristan and Arthur inspecting the enemy's formation. She counted towers, 7, each plated in iron, counted trebuchets, 11. Noted pavilion near the ridge, no banner but lion seethed in cloth pattern. "Ram?" she asked. "Hidden until night," Arthur said. "And sappers." "Digging now," Barristan replied. "We counterdig tonight." Below in Flea Bottom smallfolk watched from rooftops, eyes wide, children clutching wooden swords. Fear clung like mildew, but a trace of awe too, war on imagination's scale. Tywin rode forward under white peace banner, helm off, face calm as sculptor's marble. Barristan and Lyanna descended, met him midway across the dried moat. The Lion Lord inclined head. "I require deposition of the king's captors," he said, voice carrying. Barristan replied, "King remains sovereign. Prince acts by council? Council of traitors." Tywin's gaze brushed Lyanna. "And wolves who forget the fate of stray dogs." Lyanna stepped closer. "We remember. We're here to bite back." Tywin's lip curled. "I give you 1 day to open gates and yield the prince for trial. At dawn, towers move." Barristan answered with silence. Lyanna's fingers touched sword hilt. Valerian alloy warmed by rising sun. She smiled thinly. "Bring dawn, Lord Tywin. We welcome light." Tywin's eyes narrowed. He reined around and trotted back through ranks. Trumpets blared. Siega drums thudded, low as distant thunder. Across no man's land, men in wolf cloaks jeered pulses of breath white in cool air. The city trembled, then steadied. Barristan turned to Lyanna. "We have 1 night. Then let's remind the lion castles weren't built for easy hunting, she said. Night fell. In the Scorpion Tower above the King's Gate, Lyanna oversaw barrels of pitch, pots of quicklime, and sacks of caltrops. She ordered catapult crews to practice silent crank, rated sappers on tunnel mapping. She walked battlements doling terse praise. Down in the city she left coins with bakers to keep ovens glowing. Bread and hope smelled alike. Just before moonrise, a single note drifted on wind. Harp string, distant yet unmistakable. Lyanna froze atop the parapet. She scanned dark river beyond the bay. Lanterns winked upon sleek hulls hugging shoreline. Longboats bearing stag sigils. A chorus of wind horns followed. Renly's signal. Robert's fleet. She laughed, wild and joyous. Arthur, patrolling wall, hurried. What? Storm, she beamed. Storm in Lion's Back. Arthur's eyes lit. He turned, signaling. Beacons flared along the inner wall, coated flame telling watchers on the far bank to loose. Across the Blackwater, 60 trebuchets built in secret by blacksmiths of Storm's End loosed at once, hurling barrels of pitch and explosive firewine into Lion Camp's rear. They struck with screams of flame. Crimson tents erupted. Oxen stampeded. Supply wagons burst like overripe fruit. Robert's fleet's catapults followed, lobbing casks of myrish liquid fire that shattered against siege towers awaiting dawn. Flames licked ironwood, climbing hungry. Tywin's camp awoke into inferno. The Lion Lord emerged from pavilion calm, but eyes hard. He barked orders. Ranks formed fire lines. But chaos nipped discipline. Horses reared, men choking on smoke. From the city, catapults flung stones tipped with tar. Arrows arced in sizzling swarms. And above all, from the ramparts, Lyanna unleashed a wolf howl that rolled across water, picked up by Stark men in Robert's ships, echoed by sappers in counter-tunnels. Wolves and stags and dragons together, in wild cacophony that rattled the hills. Morning found the plain smoldering. 2 siege towers lay black shells, 9 trebuchets reduced to tangled wood. 1,000 lion corpses dotted Ashfield. Yet Tywin held line, pulling troops back beyond range. Within the city bells rang victory notes. The war had just begun. Lyanna descended to the yard, breath hoarse, face streaked with soot. Ilya met her with jug of cool wine. "We live," Ilya said. "For now," Lyanna replied, sipping. "But I'll carve a notch in this blade for every tower that falls." A commotion near the gate, scouts shouting. Lyanna strode over. A horseman in Baratheon green rode through dust, helm dented, cloak singed. He dropped a knee before her. "Word from Lord Renly," he panted. "Robert's landed north of Wendwater with 12,000. Lion foragers routed. He marches here within 2 days." Cheers. Lyanna gripped the messenger's shoulder. "Where is Prince Rhaegar?" "Rides behind Robert with Dornish outriders, my lady. He bids the city stand 2 dawns more." Her heart soared, broke, soared again. She swung up onto parpet, looked to burning horizon. 2 dawns, she thought. I will hold 2,000. Tywin spent that day salvaging pride and supplies. He ordered surviving trebuchets rolled into rear guard positions, mended wheel spokes with felled pine. He summoned Maester Pylos to assess casualties. 700 dead or missing, 2,000 wounded. He listened, face like winter stone. "Send ravens to Highgarden," he said. "Inform Lord Mace of barbarism unleashed by false regency." He sealed letter with gold wax. Lion imprint deep. Kevin approached. "Our men fear dragonfire from city and wildfire beneath ground." Morale phrase. Tywin fixed him with glacial stare, then brayed fear into rage. "At sunset tomorrow we assault Mud Gate. We break before allies reach." Kevin bowed, though doubt lingered. At camp's edge black smoke still rose, acrid as burned hair. Within King's Landing, Barristan and Arthur met at mid-afternoon, map of the gate district spread on crate. Lyanna joined, damp cloth pressed to singed cheek. Barristan pointed. "Tywin targets Mud Gate. Shortest breach to docks, flush with sappers." Arthur traced counter-tunnels. We flood side shafts tonight to drown sappers. Then collapse main tunnel behind them. Gate itself? Lyanna asked. Reinforce with iron plates, Arthur said. Line inner court with caltrops and quicklime trenches. Lyanna nodded. And archers on rooftops. I'll lead free folk slingers, stone beats mail. Barristan squeezed her shoulder. Your father would approve. A flash of sadness flickered in her eyes. Let's ensure fathers still live to judge. Evening deepened, wine-purple sky bruised by smoke streaks. In the Tower of the Hand, Ilya sat beside Jon Arryn, finalizing evacuation paths for small folk should gates fail. Children first, then mothers, then infirm. She insisted on parchment copies delivered to each sept and guild hall. Arryn admired her resolve. You govern like seasoned lord, he remarked. I govern because someone must, she replied. And because dawn still chooses to rise. They sealed scrolls with 7-pointed star. Bells tolled vespers. In the yard, priests sprinkled holy water over barrels of pitch. Maids sang lullabies to orphaned babes in silent streets. Lyanna spent twilight drilling rag-clad slingers, beggars, grain porters, tanners, teaching them to spin lead bullets at lion helms. She shared bread, wrapped bleeding palms, wove courage from raw wool of anger and hope. When one girl asked if the wolf lady feared, Lyanna answered, every breath. But fear warns, not weakens. Aim through it. Night crept. She climbed to northern parapet to find Arthur examining stars. He offered a flask. They shared swallow of dull red wine under constellations veiled by smoke. Tomorrow the sky may fall, he said. Then we stand on the rubble, she replied. He laughed softly. You carry winter's heart. She regarded him. And you, summer's dawn. Hold fast, sword of the morning. He bowed. Footsteps behind. Barristan arrived. Riders on riverbank. Baratheon scouts raising torches. 2 more dawns indeed. Lyanna exhaled. Tell them we howl hello. She lifted her new blade, angled so starlight slid along edge. In shimmering glint, she saw reflection of a girl grown to legend's cusp. Fearful, resolute, alive. Tomorrow, histories would etch what dawn delivered. Tonight, she would dream, if only for an hour, of snow melting beneath dragonfire, of children laughing over spilled grain instead of blood. She sheathed sword, descended to courtyard where soldiers huddled. She shared their watch till moon slid behind Red Keep, whispering words Ned once told by Winterfell's Godswood pool. The night is dark but gentle too. It lets our eyes learn to see beyond flame. Midnight watch. Tywin sappers burrowed beneath no man's land toward Mud Gate. In narrow darkness, sweat and fear mingled. They set timbers, dug silent. Ahead, they heard drip of water. Counterflood. Too late. A surge burst, icy torrent filling shaft. Men screamed. Lanterns hissed. Flame died. Water roared, debris choking. A few crawled back. Dozens drowned. Above, city sentries heard muffled crash. Felt tremor under boots. Lyanna, on parapet, exchanged glance with Arthur. Counter-dig success. But 2 more shafts remained. The dance of night and earth continued. Dawn pale and thin. Edged sky. Lion horns blared. Siga towers, charred but repaired, rolled forward at push of straining backs. Rams painted blood-red lumbered. Trumpets replied from city walls. Staccato code. Arrows knocked. Lyanna drew sword, warmed hilt in gloved hand. She whispered, Winter lives. Barristan raised white cloak, sign for release. Catapults thumped. Rocks whistled overhead, crunching into tower flank. Flames burst along soaked wicking. Tar bladders ignited. Towers smothered in black smoke. Yet still, they crept. On the horizon, distant dust cloud rose. Robert's vanguard marching double pace. Lion horns wavered, but Tywin rode along line, golden armor dazzling. Rallying roared out. At mid-morning towers kissed walls. Grapnels flew. Battle clamor shook stones. Lyanna led slingers atop battlement. Lead whizzed. A Lannister knight plummeted. Flaming arrows thudded into ramparts. One struck her shoulder pauldron, sputtered out. She whirled, slashed rope, tower drawbridge crashed. Below gate, ram battered iron-plated doors. Each boom shuddered marrow. Inside courtyard, quicklime trenches awaited breach. Barristan stood with 100 Stormlanders, shields locked. Ram swung again, crack. Iron dented. Another blow. Splinters flew. Barristan called formation. Gate burst inward. Lion vanguard surged, roaring. They met caltrops. Men stumbled. Quicklime powder billowed, burning eyes and lungs. Barristan's line advanced, swords scything. Mudgate soil slicked crimson. Above, Lyanna saw wave crest break. She raced down narrow stair, sword singing. In courtyard she plunged into melee. A lion helm split, wolf's cry loud. She ducked mace, slammed pommel into throat, pivoted. A man seized her hair. She drove dagger up ribs. Blood sprayed. Trumpets from river. A roar outside walls. Stormlanders. Robert's banner of crowned stag appeared over gate breach as allied reinforcements poured through side. Sallyport opened by city watch. Lion vanguard, caught between hammer and anvil, faltered. Tywin, watching from hill, saw stag banner glint. He signaled retreat. Horns bellowed forlorn. Lannister ranks pulled back through mud and bodies, leaving Ram abandoned. As they withdrew, trebuchets on city wall hurled parting stones. One crushed rear guard captain. Another shattered wheel of last tower. Within courtyard, silence broke in gasps, moans, victory cries. Lyanna leaned on sword, blood dripping from hand, vision swimming. Barristan clasped her shoulder. Gate holds. Robert strode over, helm dented, hammer coated in gore. Hell of a welcome, he boomed, grinning through sweat. He hugged Lyanna, nearly lifting her. She laughed, winced. Arthur appeared, dawn tinted red. He nodded at Robert. Your timing is legend. Robert clapped him. Couldn't let Silverharp hog glory. He looked around. Where is the prince? Hoofbeats clattered across inner drawbridge. Rhaegar rode through smoke, cloak torn but harp intact at back. He dismounted, embracing Lyanna, then Robert. You broke his back, Rhaegar breathed. Cracked, but not snapped, Robert corrected. Lion still prowls. Rhaegar surveyed carnage. But Dawn's first blood is ours. He raised voice. Water for wounded. Maesters to courtyard. Bury dead with honor. Lyanna watched him, face smeared with soot, eyes bright. Issue orders, kneel by dying squire, whisper comfort. Elijah emerged from stair, children safe in arms. Rhaegar rose, hugged wife, pressed forehead to daughters. Lyanna felt a pang of yearning and contentment interwoven. She sheathed sword, the new Valyrian alloy humming faint. Above them sun climbed, burning haze away. Beyond walls, Tywin's host regrouped, fewer but formidable. Yet over the hills behind them rose dust plumes, northern banners approaching under Direwolf and Flayedman and Merman alike. Ned had come. Lyanna's throat tightened. She climbed battlement for clearer view. While silver-topped spears glittered in ragged morning light. War horns of House Hornwood bayed. Bolton's crimson lightning snapped. In their midst, Ned rode gray stallion, cloak of browns and white, calm amid thunder. She waved sword. He answered with raised fist. Within city, bells pealed victory. Small folk spilled onto streets, some weeping, others singing. Bakers gave free loaves, beer wagons rolled. Fear did not vanish, it sank, replaced by fierce, fragile hope. In the Tower of the Hand, council assembled. Rhaegar, Aelia, Lyanna, Robert, Ned, Jon Arryn, Tarly, Luwin, Bolton, Barristan, Arthur Toti. Exhausted, yet aflame. Rhaegar spoke. Tywin still camps, but his engine numbers halved, his men hungry. Tyrell's grain fleet nears. Within a fortnight, we push him back. Robert grinned. Give me 2 days rest, I'll charge his lines and drag him here in chains. Ned raised a hand. We should offer terms before more die. Tywin's pride nearly unseated realm, but broken pride is dangerous. Lyanna agreed. Send maesters under flag of truce. Demand withdrawal. Promise council seat. No retribution. If he refuses, we end it. Rhaegar looked at Elia. She nodded, weary but resolute. Mercy first. Justice second. Robert shrugged. As long as justice swings eventually. Bolton drummed fingers. Some lions never yield. Rhaegar concluded. 8 dawn. We send envoys. Tonight we rest. Mourn, mend. He lifted cup. To dawn endured. They drank. Outside, small folk lit candles in windows, each flicker a star. Lyanna stood at balcony with Rhaegar later, watching glow. He whispered, "You saved the gate." "Robert saved us all," she corrected. "And Ned gladdens walls." He brushed soot from her cheek. "You wear war's face yet still shine." She trembled at his touch but stepped back, aware of Elias' silhouette in doorway. He followed her glance, smiled bitter sad. One day peace will let love breathe. "Hold that day," she whispered, then slipped away. Night deepened into quiet broken only by distant groans of wounded and murmured prayers. Lyanna found Beric's cot, collapsed still in armor, sword at side. She listened to city's heartbeat, slow and strong. She dreamed of snow and dragonfire meeting, forging something new, steel as bright as hope. Tywin read the prince's letter at dawn. Offer, withdraw, sit council, debts resolve. Refusal would bring united north, storm and dragon. He closed scroll, stared toward city smoking slightly in sunrise. Ziga towers, black hulks. Pride seethed. Yet behind him, men limped, horses thin, stores charred. The conclave, Tyrell, even some Westerland's lords wavered. Kevin waited. Brother? Tywin weighed legacy. Flames of mad king, future of children. Cersei would curse weakness. Jaime might understand. Tyrion? A mystery. He inhaled. We break camp tomorrow. Leave siege engines. Send Raven. I accept counsel. Relief flickered in Kevin's face. Honor will mark decision. Tywin said nothing. In his mind he forged new schemes. Council seat place to bend regency. Wedding alliances, silver noose. War lost today could be won in halls tomorrow. 2 weeks later, banners of peace fluttered over King's Landing. Lannister host withdrew across the Mander, exchanging prisoners, burying dead. Within the city, farmers from Crownlands streamed through gates with wagons of autumn harvest, greeted with coin and cheers. Bakers refilled stores. Smiths mended gates. Maesters tended charred blocks, planning brick by brick renewal. The great council convened in the Dragon Pit. Lords of every kingdom seated by rank. High Septon blessed regency pact. Rhaegar protector, heiress in care. Tywin reinstated as hand under oversight of 6-member board. Gian heir. Olenna for House Tyrell. Ned Stark, Lewin Martell. Balon Swan for Stormlands. Hoster Tully for Riverlands. Elia appointed Lady of Mercy, overseeing restoration. Lyanna granted title Warden of the Trident for valor. Shock to some but applause echoing arches. When the council ended, small folk erupted in festival. Musicians thrummed, acrobats tumbled, bells rang. On the steps of the sept, Rhaegar took harp, played the melody first heard at Harrenhal, now Anthem of Dawn. Lyanna listened in crowd, tears silvering lashes. Elia stood beside the prince, children clutching cloak. Robert laughed with Renly over barrels of mead, Ned smiling faintly. As sun set crimson over Blackwater, Rhaegar found Lyanna under willow near God's Eye Fountain. She touched trunk, felt heartbeat of tree older than conquest. We wanted dawn, she said. One of many, he answered. She looked at him, love and duty entwined. What now? We mend and sing. He brushed her fingers. And wait for winter. She smiled. Winter comes, but so does spring. They parted at Archway, promises unspoken yet woven into air. Lyanna returned to barracks where her new sword rested, clean, shining. She traced etched blade, counted notches. 2 towers, 1 ram, 3 lives saved. She whispered thanks to steel, then to gods, then to the many faced for mercy withheld. Outside, torches danced in twilight breeze. Above, the comet many had feared would herald doom now blazed softly gold, as if blessing realms' tentative peace. In its tail, Lyanna saw shape of wolf and dragon intertwined, chasing dawn across sky. She breathed deep, feeling both the weight and lightness of survival. For the first time since Harrenhal, she allowed herself a full night's sleep, and the realm, wounded but breathing, drifted with her into uncertain dreams.